Chapter 622. After the call, Tan Xiu's mood was a bit heavy. The magnificent Tang Corporation's current development was as swift as a rocket, and anyone with a bit of ability could see it clearly. His identity was probably known by many people now. The reason why the magnificent Tang Corporation could continue to develop until now was that those forces who coveted the company's core data were eliminated in Star City, and another reason was probably related to his identity. The Tang family. It was like a protective umbrella for him now. Many people were clear that if they wanted to deal with the magnificent Tang Corporation, they must deal with the Tang family together. Tan Xiu was perfectly aware that the Tang family would eventually defeat the Yao family and become the final winner, and the one who would benefit the most would be him. The outcome of the game between the two families had accidentally provided the magnificent Tang Corporation with an additional layer of protection. Men die for wealth, just as birds die for food. A tall tree that attracts the wind will be coveted by all forces. I've always wanted to keep a low profile and make a fortune in secret. But the magnificent Tang Corporation's development speed and its future potential are bound to make others envious. I'm afraid my so-called low profile is just a joke in the eyes of many people. The legal representative of the magnificent Tang Corporation is me. Tan Xiu lit a cigarette and stood in the corridor to take a few deep puffs. A strong and overbearing aura burst out from his body. Since he couldn't keep a low profile anymore, then he had to stand up. The Tang family was in the light, while the everlasting feast hall was in the dark. He could use both of them, so what was there to be afraid of? Whoever dared to covet the magnificent Tang Corporation, he would play with them. At worst, he would lead a team to kill them. After thinking it through, Tan Xiu extinguished the cigarette butt and called Gu Xiaoxua, asking her to transfer Mo All back from Nine Dragons Island and send some experts to Mo All so that he would follow him and obey his orders. Blue City. Inside a standard room of the Golden Star Hotel, Qian Xingwang stood vigilantly by the window and looked outside through the gap of the curtains. He was an overseas Chinese and an ambitious man. At the same time, he was also a confidant of a bigwig of the Stygian Club's Vero family. I have to give up the Vero family's identity as the owner of the electronics business in China for the sake of several product formulas of the magnificent Tang Corporation. Although the loss is great, I can get more benefits if I can get the formulas. Big Boss said that as long as I complete the mission, he will support me to develop my own force. Qian Xingwang clenched his fists, his eyes filled with anticipation. He had bribed a powerful deputy director of the winery under the magnificent Tang Corporation. As long as Dai Chang died, the deputy director would most likely become the new director. At that time, it would be easy for him to get the formula of God's nectar. Bang bang, there was a knock on the door. Qian Xingwang's heart tightened. He quickly turned around to look at the four subordinates sitting on the bed and the chair behind him. He quickly gestured to them. Instantly, a middle-aged man understood Qian Xingwang's meaning and quickly pulled out a pistol from his waist. He flashed to the door and asked in a deep voice, "Who is it?" "It's me." A woman's voice came from the door. The middle-aged man quickly looked at Qian Xingwang and saw that Qian Xingwang nodded at him. He immediately opened the door and allowed a beautiful and well-dressed woman to enter the room. Qian Xingwang strode forward and asked in a deep voice, "How's it going?" The woman let out a faint smile and said, "The target has been solved. According to your order, it was a car accident. However, it's a bit troublesome to deal with his two bodyguards. If the magnificent Tang Corporation's people were to investigate, I'm afraid that the two bodyguards would have been killed." "Nothing else matters as long as Dai Chang is dead," said Qian Xingwang with satisfaction. "Then, why did you want us to fake the car accident?" asked the woman. Qian Xingwang sneered and said, "I just want the magnificent Tang Corporation's people to realize that this is not a traffic accident. I deliberately exposed myself to let them know that someone is keeping an eye on the magnificent Tang Corporation and its winery. It's also the best opportunity for us to strike when everyone is in a state of panic." "I still don't get it," said the woman with a puzzled expression. "It's a diversion," Qian Xingwang proudly said. "Our first target is not the god's nectar, but the formula of health products and cosmetics. As long as the majority of the magnificent Tang Corporation's security forces are placed in the winery, we can lay our hands on the formula of health products and cosmetics. You're really amazing, boss, said the woman in admiration. Qian Xingwang grinned. Then, he put away his complacent expression and seriously said, hurry up and pack up. We must move. The magnificent Tang Corporation's backer is the Tang family in the imperial capital. If we don't hurry up and move, I believe it won't take long for someone to find this place. Ah Sen, have you found the new stronghold I told you to prepare? The middle-aged man who opened the door before nodded and said, we've found it. We can rush there at any time. Let's not delay and move immediately, said Qian Xingwang seriously. More than half an hour later, Xiao Mingzhen hurriedly arrived with 8 of his men. According to the address given by Tan Xiu, they kicked the door of the room where Qian Xingwang had stayed before, only to find that the person inside had disappeared. Tan Xiu, we haven't found them. They should have withdrawn from the traces left in the room. Xiao Mingzhen dialed Tan Xiu's number and explained the situation. Tan Xiu took the phone and slightly furrowed his brows, saying, I know, brother Xiao. Since they have fled, let's put this matter aside. Thanks for troubling you so late at night. Xiao Mingzhen said, there's no need to be polite between us. Do you want me to send some people to find their traces? As long as they are still in Blue City, finding them shouldn't be a problem. Tan Xiu said, forget it. These people obviously have a purpose and plan to act. I'm afraid it won't be easy to find them if we lose their traces. Xiao Mingzhen said, all right. I'll be staying in Blue City in the near future. Call me at any time if something happens. All right. In Star City Chinese Medical Hospital. Tan Xiu hung up the phone with Xiao Mingzhen and contacted his aunt, Tang Min again. From her, he learned that those people who had been investigated had indeed left. Their whereabouts were very strange, to the extent that they even concealed their whereabouts from the intelligence personnel and quietly disappeared without a trace. Late at night, Tan Xiu handed over the task of protecting Dai Cheng to several experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall and then drove to Kang Xia's residence. In the early hours of the morning, Kang Xia didn't rest. She received a call from Tan Xiu and waited at home. In Kang Xia's bedroom on the second floor of the villa. After arriving, Tan Xiu took off his coat and walked to the couch and sat down. Even though the heater was turned on in the room, he still half opened the window and lit a cigarette. What's the result of the investigation? Asked Kang Xia with a concerned expression. Tan Xiu shook his head and said, we've indeed investigated the identity of those people, and they're in Blue City. But when I sent someone to arrest them, the place was already empty. Kang Xia said with all seriousness, so, the other party has a premeditated plan? Their goal is God's nectar. God's nectar is probably just one of them. Tan Xiu sneered. Since they dare to covet our magnificent Tang Corporation's products, or the product formula, I'm afraid they won't only target God's nectar. I'm afraid their target is also the healthcare product formula and cosmetic formula. Who exactly are they? Asked Kang Xia. He's Qian Xingwang, a foreigner and the owner of an electronics factory in Guangyang province, said Tan Xiu. But I suspect that this is just a cover for his real identity. It's very likely that he has other identities. Else, unless he's out of his mind, he would never dare to target our magnificent Tang Corporation. The enemy is in the dark while we're in the light. I'm afraid we have to be careful, said Kang Xia. Tan Xiu nodded without a word and said, I won't leave Star City for the time being before this rat is caught. Also, I've transferred some people from Jingmen Island and they should be here in a few days. Since the other party has already acted, they won't give up halfway. Let's set up a net in Star City and trap them as long as they dare to move again. About your school? Asked Kang Xia. Let's put the school's matter aside first. Tan Xiu shook his head and said, the formula of our magnificent Tang Corporation's products must not be stolen, else it will bring us serious losses. Kang Xia nodded without a word and said, I've already sent some people to communicate with the police. They will investigate their own, while we'll prepare ours. Counting on the police now is absolutely a joke, said Tan Xiu with a forced smile. The people I've invited are much more powerful than the police. They belong to the National Intelligence Agency, yet they still lost the traces of those people. Do you think the police are more powerful than the National Intelligence Network? Kang Xia stared blankly for a moment before she immediately said, then I'll negotiate with the police tomorrow and ask them to suspend the investigation. No need. Tan Xiu waved his hand and said, if they want to investigate, then let them investigate. In order not to beat the grass and alert the snake, we'll pretend to be the same as before and wait for the fish to take the bait. That night, Tan Xiu spent the night at Kang Xia's place and slept soundly until the next morning. Then, he left in a hurry. He went out last night and didn't return since he was afraid that his mother would be worried. After returning to Southgate Town, Tan Xiu found that his parents had not gotten up yet, so he went back to his room, changed his clothes and cultivated for more than an hour. Xiu, do you have something to do this morning? Asked Su Lingyun at the dining table. I have something to do, said Tan Xiu. I have an appointment with my friend to pick up the child I adopted. Su Lingyun put down her chopsticks and curiously asked, Xiu, I know you want to adopt a child. You also said before that you want to accept him as your disciple. What's so special about him? Tan Xiu was silent for a moment and then said, he's blind. Su Lingyun's hands trembled and she quickly said, You want to adopt a blind person? Xiu, what the hell are you thinking? Although our family doesn't lack money to raise a child, but the monthly votes have been a bit low recently. In order to stimulate herself, Quiet Night has decided to continue playing the game of monthly votes exploding. Every 100 votes adds one chapter. Brothers and sisters, keep it up ! Chapter 623. After Tang Yunda woke up from his vegetative state and learned that he had a son, he had never regarded Tang Xiu as a child ever since he learned some things about his son. As the saying goes, children from poor families take charge of the household early. He knew that his son had lived a hard life with his wife all these years, so his character was very mature. However, upon hearing that his son wanted to adopt a blind child, he frowned and spoke out his thoughts. Xiu, do you have so much time and energy? You must know that there's a big difference between a blind child and a normal child. Dad, Mom, I understand what you mean. Tan Xiu said. But that child is very special. Although his eyes are blind, his heart is not. With his heart, he can see a lot of things that ordinary people can't see. The reason why I want to adopt him and accept him as a disciple is because I think he's a promising talent. You should believe in my vision. Look at Yining. Isn't she a good example? Master is right. Yining wants little junior brother, Gu Yin said with a laugh. Tang Yunda and Su Lingyun looked at each other. Their tense mood eased a lot. The couple knew that Tan Xiu was not an ordinary person. Although they didn't know how he became a cultivator, they were clear about their son's ability, so they didn't say anything more. Mu Qingping asked softly, I'll go out this morning to buy some daily necessities for the child. Also, I'll clean up the room next to Yining's bedroom. What do you think? All right. Tan Xiu nodded with a smile. After breakfast, Tan Xiu drove out. Originally, he wanted to pick up Little Blind before the new year, but then he received a call from the orphanage's president, who wanted to keep Little Blind in the orphanage for the last new year, so he agreed. After the new year, he went to the imperial capital, so it was delayed until now. At the entrance of Southgate Town, Long Shuiao, who had received a call from Tan Xiu, was already waiting there with 2 big suitcases at her feet. Upon seeing Tan Xiu's car parked in front of her, she immediately knocked on the window and said with a smile, Open the trunk. I bought some things for the children and brought them along. Tan Xiu opened the trunk and got off to help put the 2 suitcases inside. Then, he said with a smile, There aren't many warm-hearted girls like you these days. I even suspect that you spent all your money on the children in the Blue Star Welfare House. Don't praise me. I'll be shy. Long Shuao smiled. In addition, my salary is very high. It's tens of thousands a month. Tang Xiu just smiled and didn't say anything more. Long Shuao's salary was indeed very high, but as far as he knew, she had to go to the Blue Star Welfare House several times a month, and the things she sent each time were very valuable. For example, Long Shuao had spent 20 or 30,000 yuan on the trip before the new year. After getting on the car, Long Shuao smilingly said, Tan Xiu, are you curious? My uncle is Long Hanwen. He's a rich man, so why don't I ask him to help the Blue Star Welfare House? After starting the car, Tan Xiu nodded and said while driving, yeah, I'm quite curious. Logically speaking, the Long family would be able to turn the Blue Star Welfare Institute upside down with just a drop in the bucket. At the very least, it wouldn't be that difficult. Long Shuao said, in fact, my uncle has his own charity business. Every year, he will give me hundreds of thousands of yuan to spend on the children in the orphanage. However, most of the children in the orphanage are in poor health. Nearly half of them are sick. Every year, they have to spend 200,000 to 300,000 on medical expenses. Tan Xiu nodded silently. He understood this situation. Most of the children in the Blue Star Welfare Institute were weak and sickly, or children with physical defects. Not to mention little blind, there was also a child with congenital heart disease who needed to spend a lot of treatment fees every year. He even underwent a major operation last year, which cost more than 200,000 yuan. Soon after, the duo rushed to the Blue Star Welfare Institute. Tan Xiu accompanied Little Blind to pack up his things. They didn't stay in the Blue Star Welfare Institute for long and left with Little Blind. Long Shuao had nothing to do today, so she stayed behind. Inside the Land Rover SUV, classical music drifted in the air as Little Blind sat in the front passenger seat, quietly listening to the music. After driving for more than 10 kilometers, Tan Xiu stopped at a traffic light intersection. As he waited for the red light to turn red, he said, the adoption documents have been completed, but I haven't registered a new household registration book for you yet. Let's go to the Civil Affairs Bureau first to register a new household registration book for you. You'll be my family in the future. All right. Little Blind gently nodded. Your surname will be Tang from now on, said Tan Xiu again. I'll give you a new name, Tang Xiaohan. What do you think? Little Blind thought for a while and suddenly said with a smile, then, how should I address you in the future? We'll hold an apprenticeship ceremony after we return home, said Tan Xiu. You'll be my 5th apprentice. All right. Little Blind nodded and said, the name is very nice, master. I like it very much. It's good that you like it. Tan Xiu said with a smile. Do you still remember what I promised you? I'll make your eyes see again someday in the future. I'll take you to a place where you'll officially embark on the path of cultivation. Little Blind didn't know what the path of cultivation Tan Xiu mentioned was, but he faintly felt that his life would not be the same as before. At the Civil Affairs Bureau of the Old River Street District in Star City. After Tan Xiu arrived with Little Blind and Tang Xiaohan, they saw Long Zhengyu at the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau. At the moment, Long Zhengyu was wearing a down jacket, but he still stamped his feet and breathed to warm his hands. We're not late, Zhengyu. Tan Xiu walked over while holding Tang Xiaohan's hand. We're not late, said Long Zhengyu with a smile. He's Little Blind, isn't he? His name is Tang Xiaohan, said Tan Xiu. Long Zhengyu nodded and said, have you brought the adoption certificate? You'll need the adoption certificate and your ID card to register your household registration. I've brought them. Let's go inside quickly, said Tan Xiu. Huaxia was a country that relied on favors. There was a saying, having connections in the court makes things easier. Long Zhengyu had connections in the Civil Affairs Bureau. When he arrived, the second-in-command of the Civil Affairs Bureau personally accompanied him. Very quickly, he completed the registration process and was invited by the other party to sit in the office for a while. After leaving the Civil Affairs Bureau, Long Zhengyu looked at Tang Xiaohan and hesitantly said, I wanted to take you to a fun place, but it seems you can't go now. What fun place? Asked Tan Xiu. Long Zhengyu said with a smile, several local tycoons got a batch of raw stones from the south, and they're officially selling them in the Star City Convention and Exhibition Center today. To put it bluntly, it's stone gambling. Stone gambling? Tan Xiu's expression moved. He looked at Tang Xiaohan and his heart was stirred. He needed jades, a lot of jades of excellent quality. Whether it was used to make magic tools, to arrange arrays in the future, or even to refine storage items, jades were the best choice. Xiaohan, let's not go home first. How about going to play with Master? Tan Xiu picked up Tang Xiaohan and asked with a smile. All right. Tang Xiaohan was very sensible. Even though he couldn't see and didn't like lively scenes, he was willing to follow Tan Xiu wherever he wanted to go. It was because he firmly believed that he would spend the rest of his life with his master, Tan Xiu. He would also be her dearest family member. After boarding Tan Xiu's car, Long Zhengyu, who was sitting on the front seat, turned his head and glanced at Tang Xiaohan, who was sitting in the back seat. He then said with a smile, since you want to go with me, have you prepared the money? I heard that those local tycoons got a lot of raw stones with good quality. I'm afraid you'll have to spend a lot of money if you want to play with them. Tan Xiu nodded and said, I have some money now, so I'll buy some if I find some satisfactory raw stones. Long Zhengyu shook his head and laughed, satisfactory raw stones? There's no satisfactory raw stones in this world. Whoever has X-ray vision and can clearly see the jades in the raw stones will quickly become the richest man in the world. You're exaggerating, aren't you? Tan Xiu said with a smile. The wealth of the richest man in the world is in the hundreds of millions. How much money can you earn by gambling on raw stones? That's because you don't really understand the situation of jades, said Long Zhengyu. Let me tell you something. A few years ago, there was a young man surnamed Zhuang who relied on his keen eyes and understanding of jades. He once went to the south, the west, and even went to Africa to gamble on stones. He bought jades and started a jade material business. He made a fortune from it. There was a jade Buddha in the West, but that young man surnamed Zhuang made jade Buddha revere him a lot. His current net worth is more than 10 billion yuan. Listen to me, I'm talking about US dollars. Tan Xiu thought for a moment and slowly nodded, gold is priceless, but jade is priceless. I can indeed make a lot of money if I can get a lot of good jades. It's a pity that I don't have much time to spend on the jade material business, else I'd really like to see that young man surnamed Zhuang. It's very difficult for me to see him, said Long Zhengyu with a smile. He's also a busy man. However, with your status, if you want to see him, he should agree. Let me tell you, he's my idol. Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing and said, no way, right? Your Long family may not be as rich as him, but he shouldn't be your idol. I'm not talking about making money. Long Zhengyu curled his lips and said. Then what are you talking about? Tan Xiu was surprised. Hee hee. Long Zhengyu grinned and said, that brother surnamed Zhuang has reached the acme of masturbation. You know what? He has several wives, and they get along very well with each other. Our country is not like other countries, where only monogamy is allowed. But those wives of his don't need the legal status of husband and wife. Those women are willing to follow him as long as they can. Ugh, Tan Xiu stared blankly for a moment. He immediately raised his hand and gave a thumbs up, praising, this brother is amazing. Chapter 624. At the Star City Convention and Exhibition Center. There were more than 100 security guards dressed in black security uniforms. They maintained the order of the entire convention center very well. The guests who came to participate in the stone gambling were innumerable. Just as Tan Xiu entered with Tang Xiaohan in his arms, he saw that there were at least 2,000 to 3,000 people. The whole scene was very lively. How come there are so many people here? Tan Xiu asked with a bit of disbelief. Long Zhengyu chuckled and said, originally, the stone gambling event was supposed to be held in Blue City. However, there's a big shot in Star City. He used all kinds of connections to make those local tycoons hold the stone gambling event in our city. Therefore, all the rich and powerful people from all over the country who like jade have come to our Star City. That's right, you haven't gone to the hotels recently, have you? All the hotels in Star City are full of guests. How many raw stones did those local tycoons bring? Tan Xiu was surprised. To think that they can even attract rich and powerful people from all over the country. Long Zhengyu said in a low voice, it's a lot. I heard that half of the raw stones produced in a mine in the south have been brought here by them. In addition, some merchants in the jade business also came over to sell their jade stones and put out batches of raw gemstones. In short, even if you have billions of yuan today, you can spend it all. Tan Xiu's eyes lit up. He originally thought that there weren't many raw stones and jade materials this time, but after hearing Long Zhengyu's words, he realized that the jade materials he lacked this time were almost enough. As the stream of people entered the convention and exhibition center, Tan Xiu could clearly see a lot of raw stones in the temporary shacks. Each of the shacks was guarded by staff, and each raw stone had a price tag. Some stones were priced at a few hundred yuan, some were priced at a few thousand yuan, and some were priced at a few million yuan. What made Tan Xiu feel inconceivable was that some of the raw stones were priced at more than 10 million yuan. This scene was just the outermost shacks that he casually saw. As far as the eye could see, there were at least dozens of shacks inside. Zhengyu, do you also want to play? Tan Xiu turned to look at Long Zhengyu and asked with a smile. I'm a poor man, you know. Long Zhengyu shook his head and said, I can take out hundreds of thousands now, but I'm afraid I'll suffer a lot if you ask me to take out 1,000,000. I'm poor. Tan Xiu laughed and scolded, fuck off, if you are poor, then there are no rich people in the world. However, you don't have to put yourself in such a difficult situation, do you? Why invest so much money into the business? Also, don't you have all my construction funds? If you can't handle the cash flow, it's not a problem to use it temporarily. Long Zhengyu sternly said, that won't do. Your project funds will be used to rebuild Nine Dragons Island. I can only use the profits after the project is over. Otherwise, you can't use it before the project is over. Tan Xiu shook his head with a smile and said, all right then. In any case, I don't care about this matter. Just do as you see fit. The crowd moved forward. Tan Xiu's eyes kept glancing at the raw stones in the shacks. After walking for 100 meters and seeing more than a dozen shacks, he finally stopped in front of a shack selling jade materials. The raw stones in this shack were also of poor quality, but most of them were jades. However, it was obvious that these jades had just been taken out from the raw materials. The quality is just so. Tan Xiu looked at them and made a judgment inwardly. The jades I have here are pretty good, sirs. Would you like to buy some? A middle-aged man with a big belly smilingly looked at the two and asked. Behind him were 4 young men in suits who kept glancing at the guests in the shack. Tan Xiu put Tang Xiaohan on the ground and held his hand as they walked inside, replying with a smile, we're just looking around. We can buy some good jades if we see them. The fat middle-aged man's smile immediately turned brighter. He patted his chest and said, 2 little brothers, the jades I have here are absolutely of good quality. There are some jade seed material, Hetian jade material, and jadeite material. You can rest assured that the price of the jades here is absolutely fair. Tan Xiu looked at the price of the jades and secretly forced a wry smile inwardly. The price of the jades here was very high. Although he was not short of money now, he would have to spend a lot of money if he wanted to stock a lot of jades at this price. 10 minutes later. Tan Xiu looked at the fat middle-aged man who was greeting the other guests. After calling him over, he said, I've seen the jades here. The price is too expensive, and most of them are very ordinary. Let's put it this way. If you can give me a fair price for all the jades here, I'll buy them all. What? The fat middle-aged man was dumbfounded. He looked at Tan Xiao incredulously and said, "Are you kidding me, little brother? I have a lot of jades here. If it's less than 1.8 billion, it won't be." Tan Xiao raised his hand to interrupt him and seriously said, "I'm not kidding you. I need to buy a lot of jades, and you happen to have ready-made ones here. So we can directly trade as long as we agree on the price." The fat middle-aged man's expression turned serious. He carefully observed Tan Xiao and suddenly furrowed his brows, asking, "Have we met before, little brother? Why do I feel that you look familiar?" "I can assure you that we haven't met before," said Tan Xiao. "Maybe I have a common face, so you feel that I'm a bit familiar." The fat middle-aged man nodded silently. After looking around, he said in a deep voice, "I'll give you a 10% discount if it's really like what you said, and you can buy all the jades here 40%. That's my bottom line." Tan Xiao shook his head. "You can't bargain like that, little brother." The fat middle-aged man shouted, 40% discount? I'll have to pay a lot of money if I sell them to you at a 40% discount. If you're not sincere, then forget it. Tan Xiao shook his head and sighed, "It seems we can't do business here." "It's fine. Since you're not willing to accept it, I'll look elsewhere." Seeing that Tan Xiao was about to leave, the fat middle-aged man quickly said, 15% off. "How about 15% off? This is the bottom line that I can bear, 40% off." Tan Xiao shook his head. Saying, he held Tang Xiaohan's hand and walked outside with Long Zhengyu. The fat middle-aged man's expression kept changing. Looking at Tan Xiao's back, he wanted to call for help, but the jade materials he had brought in this time were not cheap. If he sold it to Tan Xiao at a 40% discount, not only would he not make a profit, but he would also lose some money. However, if he sold it at a 30% discount, he would be able to break even. 20% off. This was his bottom line. Just as Tan Xiao and Long Zhengyu were about to walk out of the shed, the fat middle-aged man strode to catch up and loudly said, "Little brother, 20% off. We can trade now if you can bear it. But if you can't, then go to another shed and have a look." Tan Xiao stopped and looked at the jade stones in the shed again. Then, he asked, "How much is the total price of the jade stones here?" "It's 645 million before the discount," said the fat middle-aged man. "I've sold some before, so there should be more than 610 million left." Tan Xiao pondered for a moment and nodded, "If that's the case, then let's trade. Calculate the discounted price for me, and then send all the jade materials here to the address I gave you." The fat middle-aged man complied and quickly calculated the total price of the rest of the jade stones. After some calculations, he took the list to Tan Xiao and said, 485. 32 million. Since little brother is so straightforward, then I'll erase the change for you. It's a total of 485 million. If you want me to send someone to deliver all the jade materials to the address you specified, the furthest you can go is Shuangqing province. Also, you need to pay me 85 million in advance as a deposit. Then, I'll clear the account after the goods arrive. No need to go through so much trouble. Tan Xiao said, "Just send someone to load all the jade materials and then leave with me. The address is not far, just in the Blue City area. We'll exchange the goods when we arrive there." "No problem. I'll arrange it now." The fat middle-aged man immediately nodded. Tan Xiao looked at the hundreds of stones in the corner and smilingly said, "How about you sell all those stones to me? As for the price, 15 million should be enough. How about we round it up to 500 million? The fat middle-aged man forced a smile and said, "The total price of my raw stones is more than 30 million, little brother. Even if I give you a 20% discount, it's still about 25 million. You're too ruthless." Tan Xiao smilingly said, "If you have more raw jade materials in the future, I'll buy as many as you can as long as the quality is not worse than this. How about it?" The fat middle-aged man stared and asked in amazement, are you serious? Absolutely, Tan Xiu smilingly said. But don't be too ruthless. I can't afford to buy tens of billions of jade materials a year. The fat middle-aged man was a bit excited. Although he felt that Tan Xiu's additional words were a bit unreliable, he was a local tycoon who could buy 500 million jade materials at once. He could easily make up for the loss of 10 million by buying some of his own jade materials in the future. As he thought of this, he happily said, "Deal." Long Zhengyu, who had been standing beside Tan Xiu, immediately said, "Aren't you too ruthless, Tan Xiu? You're not in the jade business. What are you going to do with 500 million jade materials at once?" Tan Xiu lightly smiled and said, "I'll make a batch of jade artifacts when I have nothing to do in the future." Long Zhengyu suddenly understood. He knew that Tang Xiu owned 9 Dragons Island and that there was a huge palace on the island. There would be many more palaces after the renovation. At that time, if all the utensils on 9 Dragons Island were to be made of jade, it would definitely look grand and magnificent. However, wasn't spending so much money on jade artifacts a bit too wasteful? The fat middle-aged man was stunned at the moment. Tan Xiu. Could he be the young divine Dr. Tan Xiu of Star City Chinese Medical Hospital? Yesterday, the monthly votes exceeded 200. Today, I've added 2 chapters. Counting the guaranteed chapters, I have a total of 4 chapters. This is the first chapter. Keep asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Chapter 625. The fat middle-aged man suddenly sobered up. He finally realized why he felt that Tan Xiu looked familiar. However, before he was 100% sure, he still asked with a bit of expectation, "As far as I know, there's a young miracle-working doctor named Tang Xiu in Star City Chinese Medical Hospital. Are you that young miracle-working doctor?" Tan Xiu said with a smile, "I didn't expect that I'm quite famous. Even you know about me?" "That's right, it's me." The fat middle-aged man was excited. He rubbed his hands and said, "It's really you, Divine Dr. Tang. I'm so lucky to have such a big business deal with you as soon as I came here. Since you feel lucky, can you give me a discount?" asked Tan Xiu with a smile. Ugh, the smile on the fat middle-aged man's face froze. He then let out a hollow laugh and said, "Forget it this time. But I'll definitely give you a better price next time. It's a deal." Tan Xiu nodded with a smile. "Tan Xiu, you've bought so many jades, so you won't gamble on stones anymore, right?" asked Long Zhengyu. "Why not?" Tan Xiu said with a smile. "Since there's such a fun thing, I might as well participate in it. Maybe my luck is off the charts and I can earn back all the money I spent today." Long Zhengyu was at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh. "If you have such amazing luck, I think you don't need to do business anymore. You can become a super rich man just by gambling on stones every day." Tan Xiu smiled and said, "How about you help me load the car? I'll take a look around." Long Zhengyu thought for a moment and nodded, "No problem. But remember to give me some jade artifacts when you carve them later." "No problem." Tan Xiu replied with a smile and took Tang Xiaohan away. With Long Zhengyu staying to help him, he wasn't afraid that the fat middle-aged man would secretly play tricks on him. Half an hour later, Tan Xiu saw an acquaintance in a shack. It was an acquaintance he never thought he would meet here. Miao Wentong. However, just as Tan Xiu was about to walk towards Miao Wentong while holding Tang Xiaohan's hand, Tang Xiaohan suddenly stopped and tugged at Tan Xiu. "What happened?" Tan Xiu turned around and asked in astonishment. Tang Xiaohan furrowed his brows and turned to point a few meters away, saying, "There seems to be something there, master. It's like a beating heart." "What?" Tan Xiu was stunned. He looked in the direction where Tang Xiaohan was pointing. His eyes immediately fell on a 2-meter-tall, 1-meter-wide rectangular stone erected on the ground. The outer surface of the stone was faintly green. However, when his gaze fell on the price tag of the stone, he suddenly revealed a strange expression, 12 million. Let's go and take a look. Tang Xiu led Tang Xiaohan to the front of the stone. He reached out to touch it and released his spiritual sense in an instant. What shocked him was that he could also sense something throbbing inside the stone. It was indeed as Tang Xiaohan said, it was like a beating heart. What's going on? Tan Xiu hesitated for a moment before he instantly released his primal chaos force and fused it into the stone. However, just as his primal chaos force was injected into the stone, Tan Xiu suddenly felt a suction force coming from inside. Although the suction force was not strong, the primal chaos force he injected was still sucked away. There's something strange here. Tan Xiu's expression changed. He retracted his hand and squatted in front of Tang Xiaohan, asking with a complicated expression, "Tell me what's going on, Xiaohan. How can you know that there seems to be something beating inside?" "I don't know, either." Tang Xiaohan shook his head. "It's just a feeling that there's no one here, yet something is beating. It's like my heart is beating as fast as the thing here." Perception. Tan Xiu had never encountered such a situation with Tang Xiaohan. After thinking for a while, he summoned an employee and asked, "What's the base price of this stone?" "All the raw stones here are marked with the base price, sir," said the employee with a smile. "You must pay 12 million if you want to buy this stone." Tan Xiu nodded and said, "Then let's make a deal. Give me your account number and I'll transfer the money." The employee stared blankly and looked a bit surprised. After nodding, he smilingly said, "You really have a discerning eye, sir. Many people have their eyes on this stone, but none of them have decisively bought it. Please come with me. We'll go inside to handle the transaction procedures." "Hold on." A white-haired old man nearby suddenly came from 7 to 8 meters away. His eyes were bright and spirited, and he was stroking a Hetian jade ring in his hand. Tan Xiu and the employee stopped at the same time and looked at the old man. The old man squinted his eyes and lightly smiled. "Little brother, can you bear the pain and give this stone to this old man? You can rest assured that I won't let you suffer a loss. As long as the price of the raw stones you choose in this shed is no more than 500,000 yuan, I'll help you pay the bill. I'm not short of money." Tan Xiu shook his head. 1 million, said the old man. "Old man, don't think about using money to make me dizzy," said Tan Xiu with a smile. "I won't give you the thing I fancy even if you give me 100 million yuan. The old man took out a certificate from his pocket and handed it to Tan Xiu, saying, "Little brother, let me introduce myself. I'm the vice president of the National Jade Association, Tian Jingnan. I'm also a jade carver. If you can give this stone to me, I can introduce you to the National Jade Association and help you carve an item for free later. How about it? It turns out to be President Tian. Is your carving skill very good?" asked Tan Xiu with a smile. "I dare not say that I'm the best, but there are not many people in our country who are better than me in carving," said Tian Jingnan confidently. "Someone once offered me 5 million yuan, hoping that I could carve an item for him, but I refused. As a matter of fact, I've been interested in this stone since I bought a lot of raw stones, so I'm a bit short of funds. I just asked my son to transfer some money to me. I didn't expect that little brother would take a fancy to it in such a short time." "I'm sorry, but I can't help you," said Tan Xiu with a smile. Tian Jingnan frowned. He didn't expect that the young man in front of him was still unwilling to give it to him even though he had said so much. This situation made him a bit angry. However, his self-restraint had always been good. Even though he was angry, he didn't flare up. Instead, he said, "Little brother, give me your condition. I'll do it as long as I can accept it." "I don't have any condition." Tan Xiu shook his head. Tian Jingnan finally couldn't help but say, "Young man, you bought this raw stone with the intention of gambling, right? I'll give you 5 million yuan and you give this stone to me. How about it?" Tan Xiu didn't want to talk to him anymore. He called the staff and walked to the back. "What's wrong with you, President Tian?" 2 middle-aged men came over. After seeing Tian Jingnan's angry expression, one of them immediately asked, Tian Jingnan forced a wry smile and said, I took a fancy to this raw stone, but someone beat me to it. I promised him 5 million yuan and asked him to give me the raw stone, but he didn't even pay attention to me. The man was surprised and asked, who's so arrogant? He didn't even give face to you, President Tian. Forget it. Tian Jingnan helplessly sighed, I'll give it up since he doesn't want to give it to me. As a matter of fact, I don't know if there's any jade inside or how much jade is inside. Maybe there's only a bit of green in the window, but there's nothing inside. That's right. The two men nodded and agreed with Tian Jingnan's words. 10 minutes later, Tan Xiu came out with Tang Xiaohan and found that Tian Jingnan hadn't left yet. He forced a wry smile inwardly. However, Tian Jingnan didn't do or say anything excessive, so he didn't have any malice toward him. With the help of the staff, several workers responsible for transporting the raw stone came pushing a flatbed cart and helped Tan Xiu move the raw stone onto the flatbed cart. Under Tan Xiu's lead, they came to the shed where he bought the jade. Oh. Divine Dr. Tang, did you buy another raw stone? This stone looks good. There's even a trace of green in the window. There should be jade inside, right? The plump middle-aged man greeted him with a beaming smile as he observed the raw stone on the flatbed cart. Who knows? Tan Xiu said. I felt that there's a higher chance of jade or emerald inside this stone, so I bought it. How much did you pay for it? Asked the plump middle-aged man curiously. 12 million, said Tan Xiu with a smile. The plump middle-aged man raised his thumbs up and praised, Divine Dr. Tang is really a local tycoon. You can casually bet more than 10 million yuan on a stone. Your boldness is really great. I'm just playing around, so I won't buy too much, said Tan Xiu with a smile. But I'll have to trouble you to help me send it back. No problem, said the plump middle-aged man with a smile. Suddenly, a shout came from outside the shed, it's going up. The gambling is going up. Immediately, the guests in the shed, as well as many people outside, rushed toward the source of the voice. Stone gambling and cutting could be done here. Many buyers would cut the raw stone on the spot for the sake of convenience, and the result of gambling could quickly be seen. Long Zhengyu was a bit moved and asked, shall we go and have a look? Tan Xiu pondered for a moment and then nodded. Let's go and have a look. I've seen some guests gambling before, but none of them caused such a big sensation like this. The plump middle-aged man hesitated for a moment before he gave some orders to his men and also came out. Do you know how I made my fortune, Divine Dr. Tang? It's all thanks to stone gambling. More than a decade ago, I went to the south with 20,000 yuan. I didn't expect that I would stumble upon a stone gambling place by chance. I even joined in the fun and spent more than 1,000 yuan to buy a stone, which turned out to be a 1,000-fold profit. It can be said that I once became rich overnight, sitting on tens of millions of yuan. Chapter 626. Tan Xiu had observed the chubby middle-aged man's physiognomy. He was born with a face of fortune. Although he couldn't become a super-rich man, it wouldn't be a problem for him to have a net worth of billions. Song Hao. This was the name of the chubby middle-aged man, a Miao man who came from the Miao region and took root outside. He was very smart, had good vision, and had an extraordinary temperament. Through his narration, Tan Xiu learned that he became rich overnight more than a decade ago and had a wealth of tens of millions. However, he didn't get carried away by this sudden wealth. Instead, he began to study jade stones after realizing the amazing profits contained in jade stones. He constantly consulted people who knew about jade and lingered in major jade trading markets. He even worked in jade mines many times. After several years of accumulation, he gradually found some knack and then began to work as a middleman. He used his knowledge and eloquence to slowly accumulate wealth and eventually had a net worth of billions. Divine Dr. Tang, stone gambling is all about foresight, and luck can only play a small part. The water in this industry is very deep, so it's best not to act rashly if you don't know anything about it. The chubby middle-aged man, Song Hao, warned him in a low voice. Don't worry. Tan Xiu laughed. I'm not the kind of person who gets jealous after seeing others suddenly become rich. My main purpose in coming to this convention center is to buy jade materials. Since I've already bought them from you, I won't waste too much money on stone gambling. Of course, if I come across something good and the price isn't too high, I'll buy it for fun. Song Hao was well aware that Tan Xiu wasn't short of money. Tan Xiu was, after all, a famous young divine doctor who could earn a lot of money just by relying on his superb medical skills. Who didn't have headaches and fever these days? If it were those incurable diseases, perhaps even the super rich would be willing to spend a lot of money to seek treatment. After a while, several people followed the flow of people and came to a place 2 shacks away. Not only was there a large number of stones in the shed, but there were also stone cutters. Hundreds of people gathered here, all of them staring at the stone cutter in blue overalls. To be more precise, they were staring at the football-sized stone that the stone cutter was holding up with both hands. Little brother, you bought this stone for a total of $2,000. Now that it's green, it proves that you've won the bet. I'll give you 2 million, and you'll let me have this stone. How about it? A well-dressed middle-aged man beside the stone cutter looked at the excited young man in front of the stone cutter and said, I'll pay 3 million. I bid 5 million. As the well-dressed middle-aged man's voice fell, 2 voices sounded out at almost the same time. The one who was willing to bid 5 million was an ordinary-looking young man who exuded a superior aura. He was about 26 or 27 years old, and he was accompanied by a young man and a young woman. The owner of the stone, the excited young man, was overjoyed when he heard that. As if he was afraid that the other party would go back on his word, he said loudly, 5 million yuan. Transfer the money to me now and I'll sell this stone. The young man who offered 5 million nodded in satisfaction. He turned to the young woman beside him and nodded. Soon, he transferred 5 million into the account given by the owner of the stone. The stone cutter asked, Do you want to polish this stone? The young man who bought the stone said without hesitation, yes. The stone cutter nodded silently and carefully wiped the stone in his hand. The green color on the stone increased along with his action. In just a few minutes, a palm-sized piece of green appeared in front of everyone. Wait a minute. A voice suddenly sounded in the crowd. Tian Jingnan, accompanied by 2 men, quickly squeezed into the crowd. His eyes fell on the young man and said with a smile, Little brother, how about selling this stone to me? I'm willing to buy it for 10 million since you've spent 5 million. I'm sorry, but I don't lack money, said the young man with a smile. Tian Jingnan's breath stagnated. He hesitated for a moment and then spoke again, 20 million. I'll offer 20 million if you're willing to sell this stone to me. The young man's mouth curved into a smile. He still shook his head and said, I'm sorry. Stone gambling is just a hobby of mine. It doesn't matter whether I make a profit or lose money in the end. What I enjoy is the process of cutting and polishing the stone. Let's continue, master. Tian Jingnan shook his head helplessly. He found that he was really unlucky this year. He fancied a stone before, but someone beat him to it. Now that he realized that there might be a good jade in this uncut stone, the other party was still unwilling to sell it. Tan Xiu silently stood in the crowd. As his spiritual sense enveloped the stone, he secretly sighed at the young man's luck. There was jade in this stone, and it was the imperial green jadeite. Once it was taken out, its value would be at least more than 9 digits. Let's go. Tan Xiu pulled Long Zhengyu and turned around with a faint smile. Long Zhengyu hesitated for a moment and found that Song Hao had already left behind Tan Xiu. He let out a wry smile and looked deeply at the young man who bought the stone before chasing after Tan Xiu. Tan Xiu, we haven't finished watching the good show yet. Why are you in such a hurry to pull me back? Asked Long Zhengyu. Tan Xiu lightly smiled and said, If others lose their bet and we gloat over their misfortune, it shows that our temperament is not good. If others win their bet, it will only make us envious. Why would we do such a troublesome thing? Long Zhengyu was at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh. That's a fallacy. Forget it. If you don't want to see it, then don't. Do you still want to play? If not, let's hurry up and send these jade materials back. I don't want to play anymore. Tan Xiu slightly shook his head and smiled. A few hours later, the container truck delivered all the jade and stone materials to Southgate Town. After unloading them in the courtyard, Tan Xiu transferred the money to Song Hao and sent him away. What's your plan next, Tan Xiu? Long Zhengyu asked with a bored expression. I'll rest at home and let little Han familiarize himself with the situation at home, said Tan Xiu. We'll go to the convention and exhibition center in the afternoon. We're going to the convention and exhibition center again? Asked Long Zhengyu in surprise. Tan Xiu shrugged his shoulders and said with a relaxed expression, I'm idle anyway, so it's better to go there and play. But what about you? What's your plan today? I'll go back first, said Long Zhengyu. I'll go to Nine Dragons Island in a few days, so I'll arrange some things in Star City before I go. That's right, if you meet that brat who bought the stone material today again, you must be wary of him. That brat, he's as smart as a demon. Tan Xiu stared blankly for a moment. The appearance of the youth exuding a superior aura emerged in his mind and he immediately asked, who is he? He's Chu Yuan, the successor of Shanghai's Imperial Garden, the owner of the Imperial Brilliant Group, and the founder of Imperial Fortune Venture, said Long Zhengyu. Tan Xiu slightly furrowed his brows. He vaguely felt that the name, Imperial Garden, was somewhat familiar, as if he had heard it somewhere. But he couldn't remember where he had heard it. Is he very powerful? Long Zhengyu was silent for half a minute before he faintly said, he's more than powerful. He's simply monstrous. The wealth he has is no less than any of the powerful families in the country. The armed forces behind him are so many that it makes one's hair stand on end. His influence is not only in the business world, but also in the military. Tan Xiu's complexion changed and a big wave rose inside his heart. He was well aware of the real powerful families in the country, such as the Tang family and the Yao family. They had deep foundations, a lot of wealth, and powerful armed forces. Yet, Chu Yuan could actually be compared with these real powerful families. What exactly was his origin? Tan Xiu shot a deep look at Long Zhengyu and asked, you seem to know him very well, no? You're wrong. I know very little about him. Long Zhengyu shook his head. Appearances can confuse the eyes, and it's difficult to measure the depth with a ruler. The Imperial Garden has existed for hundreds of years. Even the four major families during the chaotic era of war were deeply influenced by the Imperial Garden. Even during the anti-Japanese war, countless outstanding talents emerged from the Imperial Garden and became heroes after the end of the war. Even though all the people who came out of the Imperial Garden were stripped of their positions after the end of the war and disappeared from the world, the Imperial Garden is still the Imperial Garden and has always been feared by those in power generation after generation. I don't know much about Chu Yuan, but I know a lot about the Imperial Garden. In a flash, Tan Xiu seemed to understand Long Zhengyu's meaning. He silently nodded and said, I understand. You can leave first if you have something to do. Let's find some time to meet again before going to Nine Dragons Island. I'll be staying in Star City in the near future. Long Zhengyu responded and then drove Tan Xiu's car away. He didn't say much to Tan Xiu, but his words not only affected Tan Xiu, but also himself. He didn't want to mention the name, Chu Yuan, because Chu Yuan was his direction and the goal he strived for all his life. In the villa's courtyard, Gu Yin's face was full of curiosity as she observed Tang Xiaohan, who was standing quietly at the side. She wanted to talk to Tang Xiaohan, but she was worried that he wouldn't be easy to get along with. Finally, as Long Zhengyu left, Tan Xiu's eyes fell on Tang Xiaohan. He turned around and waved to Gu Yin, saying with a smile, Yin, come here and let me introduce you. His name is Tang Xiaohan. You can call him Junior Brother, or Xiaohan. Gu Yin paced a few steps forward and nodded obediently before extending her hand to Tang Xiaohan. But when she realized that Tang Xiaohan's eyes couldn't see, she immediately pulled his hand and said, "Hello, junior brother. I'm your senior sister, Gu Yin. I should be older than you, but I'm just a few years older." "Hello, senior sister." Tang Xiaohan suddenly smiled and said, "Are we a family from now on?" Gu Yin looked up at Tan Xiu and found that Tan Xiu gently nodded to her. She immediately smiled and said, "We're a family from now on, junior brother. A master for a day is a father for a lifetime. We're all master's children. A master for a day is a father for a lifetime." Tang Xiaohan silently recited this sentence inwardly and repeated it a dozen times. Then, he firmly nodded and said, "I'm very happy. I have family members now, and 2 of them." "You're wrong, junior brother." Gu Yin grinned and said, "It's not 2 family members. You'll have a lot of family members in the future." "Sorry. I was invited to attend a gala, so the update is a bit late today." Chapter 627. Tan Xiu was very satisfied with the harmonious relationship between the 2 children. After handing over Tang Xiaohan to Mu Qingping to take care of, he put a lot of jade and stone materials into his spatial ring in front of Mu Qingping and Gu Yin, and then went to the study room on the 2nd floor alone. Imperial Garden. It seemed to be a very mysterious and extremely low-key existence. In today's society, it was very difficult to keep secrets and still be strong in certain industries. If there were really a lot of outstanding talents in Imperial Garden, then it was really too powerful. In order to figure out the situation of Imperial Garden, Tan Xiu dialed Gu Xiaoshua's phone. To his surprise, although Gu Xiaoshua knew something about Imperial Garden, she didn't know much about it. However, she told Tan Xiu one thing, which attracted Tan Xiu's attention: Imperial Garden was the Tai force of the 3 styles. Tan Xiu searched on the internet and learned about the 3 styles, Tai, Qimen, and Luren, which became the 3 styles. It was the ancient Chinese's 3 great lost arts. Tai mainly used Tianyuan to measure national affairs, Qimen mainly used earthly primordial to measure collective affairs, Luren mainly used human primordial to measure human affairs. Qimen was famous for measuring collective affairs, Tai was taboo for measuring national affairs, Qimen was taboo for measuring collective affairs, Luren was taboo for measuring human affairs. After a long time, Tan Xiu thoughtfully turned off the computer, but he was a lot more vigilant about Imperial Garden. Because there were many Qimen forces, but Tai was the only one. In other words, Imperial Garden was an existence that could wrestle with the entire Qimen forces. With a history of hundreds of years, or maybe even longer, it was probably deep enough to make one's hair stand on end. If people don't offend me, I won't offend them. If people offend me, I will definitely offend them. The Imperial Garden is powerful, but I'm not afraid of it. If the people of the Imperial Garden live in harmony with me, then I won't care. But if the people of the Imperial Garden dare to provoke me, no matter how powerful they are, I will make them suffer a bloody lesson. Tan Xiu lit a cigarette. After a few puffs, he looked at the time and found that it was already noon. He finished the whole cigarette and went to the dining room on the 1st floor. Because his parents were out and did not come back, after lunch, he left Tang Xiaohan to Mu Qingping to take care of and left the house. Stone gambling. He was no stranger to this. He had once relied on his own abilities to make a lot of money by gambling on stones. Now that he had a chance to make a fortune, he did not want to miss it. At 1 p.m., he returned to the Star City Convention and Exhibition Center. Since it was lunchtime, the number of people in the Convention and Exhibition Center was reduced by more than half compared to the morning. Tan Xiu walked around those shacks. To his satisfaction, after touching them personally and using his divine sense to observe, he finally found hundreds of good stones, among which more than a dozen contained jade materials and jadeite, which were definitely of the highest quality. "Boss, isn't business busy?" After Tan Xiu walked into a shack, he looked at the shack that was hundreds of square meters in size. Apart from 2 stone-cutting machines and 2 white-haired old men, he immediately said with a smile. The old man, who was wearing presbyopic glasses and holding a cup of hot tea, waved his hand casually and said in an even more lazy tone, "They've all gone for lunch, so there's naturally no rush here." "Little brother, are you here to cut the stones?" Tan Xiu said with a smile, "Cutting the stones is a given, but I want to buy a lot of stones, so I hope to rent your shed this afternoon. Both of you, name your price." The other old man, who was wearing a tang suit and had a cane beside him, waved his hand and said with a smile, "You're mistaken. I'm not a stone cutter. It's just that an old friend of mine came to Star City, so I took advantage of lunchtime to meet him. Old Huang, this little brother wants to rent your shed, what do you say?" The old man wearing presbyopic glasses said with a smile, "What's your name, little brother?" "Tan Xiu," said Tan Xiu. The old man in tang suit said with a smile, "I say, Old Huang, you don't know the famous young divine doctor? One of the reasons why I came to meet with you today is to have a good chat with you about this young divine doctor of Star City Chinese Medical Hospital. I want to see if you're willing to find an opportunity to ask him to treat your leg or not." The old man wearing presbyopic glasses looked surprised. He stood up and sized up Tan Xiu. Then, he curiously said, "I've heard the name of the young divine doctor, but I didn't expect it to be this little brother." Tan Xiu slightly squinted his eyes as he observed the old man's legs. He found that the old man's left leg obviously had a hidden injury. His left foot was a lot lower than the ground, and he would definitely have a slight limp if he were to walk. After pondering for a moment, Tan Xiu said, "How should I address you, old man?" The old man wearing presbyopic glasses said with a smile, "You can call me Master Huang. Can I take a look at your left leg?" Tan Xiu nodded. Master Huang's eyes lit up as he immediately nodded and promised. A few minutes later, Tan Xiu found that Master Huang's left leg joint had a hidden injury due to multiple bone dislocations and even bone fractures. After withdrawing his hand, Tan Xiu said, "I can treat the hidden injury in your leg joint." Master Huang looked happy and hurriedly said, "Then I'll have to trouble you, Divine Dr. Tang. I'm willing to pay any price." "Do you think your leg is more important?" asked Tan Xiu. "Or is renting this shed to me and helping me cut the stones?" Master Huang instantly understood Tan Xiu's meaning and replied without hesitation, "Money is just a worldly possession. Naturally, my leg is more important. If Divine Dr. Tang can cure my leg, the rent and labor fees will be waived." "Deal." Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and said, "Please have a nice chat. I'm going to buy the stones I like. I'll send them to you later." "All right." Master Huang happily replied. At this moment, a graceful figure came in from outside the shed. She was wearing a white mink coat and a beige silk scarf. Her shiny black long hair fluttered in the wind. The most eye-catching thing about her was her face. She wore a white veil below the bridge of her nose, making people unable to see her true appearance. Tan Xiu raised his brows and instantly released his spiritual sense. After he easily saw the woman's appearance, he was secretly surprised because he found that the woman was very beautiful. She was about 25 or 26 years old, and her appearance was not inferior to beauties like Kang Xia and Mu Weining. "Huh." The moment Tan Xiu released his spiritual sense, the woman's footsteps suddenly came to a halt. A bewildered look could be seen in her obsidian-like beautiful eyes. Her eyes easily fell on Tan Xiu. Upon finding that Tan Xiu was about to leave, she immediately called out, "Please wait, sir." Tan Xiu's footsteps came to a halt. He found that the woman was coming toward him and immediately asked, "What's the matter?" The woman faintly smiled, giving Tan Xiu a feeling of bathing in the spring breeze. Her beautiful voice sounded, "My name is Shuiyu, sir. You can call me Miss Shui or Yu. May I know how to address you, sir?" "I'm Tan Xiu." Tan Xiu replied calmly. Shuiyu gently nodded. A strange expression appeared in her eyes as she asked, "Does Mr. Tang know about the heaven and earth? Do you know about the feng shui profound text?" Tan Xiao was secretly vigilant inwardly, yet he maintained a straight face and replied, I don't know. I don't know. Mr. Tang has a very special qi, said Shuiyu suspiciously. I can't see through your fate and your spirit. What? Two exclamations sounded as Master Huang and the old man in Chinese attire came at the same time. Master Huang looked at Tan Xiao with a strange expression before his eyes shifted to Shuiyu. He frowned and asked, Is what you said true? You can't see through his fate. You can't see through his spirit. It's true. Shuiyu seemed to know Master Huang and the old man as she gently nodded. That's impossible. Master Huang murmured. Unless, otherwise, how could I not see through it? Could it be? It's possible. Shuiyu nodded seriously. Tan Xiao looked at the two and shook his head. You two don't need to speak in riddles. Just spit it out. Forget it. It's nothing. Shuiyu shook her head. I took the liberty to disturb you, Mr. Tang. Please forgive me. Master Huang also quickly said, Divine Dr. Tang, aren't you going to buy stones? Go early and come back early. Tan Xiao nodded and turned to walk outside. After he left the shed, he could still feel the eyes of the three people staring at his back. Shuiyu's words, as well as Master Huang and the old man in Chinese attire's shock, made him realize that he seemed to have accidentally met three special people. Someone who could see through fate and see through people's spirits definitely belonged to the three styles, but he didn't know which style they belonged to. Inside the shed. As Tan Xiao's back disappeared into the street outside, Master Huang and the old man in Chinese attire immediately bowed and cupped their fists toward Shuiyu and respectfully called out, Welcome, Jade Beauty. Please forgive us for not going out to meet you. You don't need to be so polite, two elders, said Shuiyu softly. I came here to find a good piece of jade. But I seem to have found an interesting person. Master Huang and the old man in Chinese attire exchanged glances and forced smiles could be seen in their eyes. Jade Beauty, the young yard lord is in this convention and exhibition center. Do you want us to inform her? Asked Master Huang. Shuiyu raised her black brows and lightly said, What is he doing here? He has the same purpose as you, to search for jade, said Master Huang. It seems that he also sensed the direction of the living jade. Shuiyu indifferently said. I haven't seen him for just 2 years, but his ability has improved a lot. Master Huang, please don't receive other guests in this shed today. I need you to help me cut the stones. Master Huang stared blankly for a moment and immediately said with a bitter face, I'm afraid I'm unable to do it, Jade Beauty. Divine Dr. Tang, who just left, has rented this place. He also wants to cut the stones here. Shuiyu was surprised. That's right. Master Huang nodded. Shuiyu pondered for a moment and asked, Why do you call him Divine Dr. Tang? Is he a very powerful Chinese medicine practitioner? The old man in traditional Chinese attire interjected, Jade Beauty, Tang Xiao is the famous young divine doctor of Star City Chinese Medical Hospital. His medical skills have reached the acme of perfection, and many old Chinese doctors highly praise him. Moreover, Divine Dr. Gui Jianqiu's direct disciple once said that his medical skills are far inferior to Divine Dr. Tang. Jade Beauty was a bit surprised. She thought for a moment and said, Since he rented this place, then I won't trouble you. He's very strange. If it weren't for some powerful people covering his life for him, I'm afraid the problem would have been him. Go on with your business. I'll follow him to have a look. Today's 4th update has been completed. Seeking recommendation votes for support. Chapter 628. Tang Xiao had already walked around the inside and outside of the sheds and memorized the locations of the stones he wanted to buy. After learning about them, he finally understood that the prices of those stones were not negotiable. If he wanted to buy them, he had to pay for them, and if he didn't want to buy them, he could go elsewhere. But the price of the jades taken out of the stones could be negotiated. Boss, I want these 2 stones. After coming to a nearby shack, Tan Xiao pointed to the 2 stones he had inspected before. The total price of these 2 stones was 28,000 yuan. After paying with his card, Tan Xiu found a cart driver and loaded the 2 stones into the cart. Mr. Tang. Shuiyu strode forward and slowly came before Tan Xiu. Her eyes swept the cart and lightly smiled. Do you like to gamble on stones, Mr. Tang? Tan Xiu didn't want to have more contact with this woman because the dozens of stones he fancied contained good quality jades and jades. Furthermore, he had decided to ask Master Huang to help him cut the stones. Once the jades and jades were taken out, his identity would be suspected by this strange woman. I'm just playing around. Tan Xiu said perfunctorily. I also want to gamble on stones, so this trip won't be in vain, said Shuiyu with a faint smile. If Mr. Tang doesn't mind, how about we choose the stones together? Tan Xiu slightly furrowed his brows. He pondered for a moment and then said, I'm sorry, but I've already chosen the stones and won't stay in each shack for a long time. If Miss Shui wants to choose the stones, please go ahead. Having said that, he didn't give Shuiyu a chance to speak and directly walked toward the next shack. Trouble should be avoided as much as possible. His special means could not be known by others, and naturally, it was better for fewer people to know about it. Shuiyu was dumbfounded. She had never encountered such a person before. He spoke in a completely perfunctory manner, and in the end, he bluntly refused her request. Moreover, he didn't even give her a chance to speak and just left like that. Shuiyu had met a lot of people and experienced a lot of things since childhood. Yet, no one had ever refused her or showed a repulsive attitude. There must be something strange about him. Shuiyu steeled her heart and chased after Tan Xiu's back under the influence of that strong aura. Regardless of whether Tan Xiu allowed her to follow, she wanted to witness Tan Xiu's methods of stone gambling. After entering the shanty, Tan Xiu was keenly aware that Shuiyu had followed him in. Although he was somewhat dissatisfied and thought that this woman was not sensible, he could not directly drive her away since she did not come to strike up a conversation. After spending 1.6 million to buy a few stones, Tan Xiu left with the cart driver. Shuiyu had been maintaining a distance of 7 or 8 meters from Tan Xiu. She did not intervene in Tan Xiu's purchase of stones, nor did she say anything to affect Tan Xiu. Her beautiful eyes were only filled with curiosity as they lingered between Tan Xiu and the stones. After nearly an hour, Tan Xiu had invited a total of 6 cart drivers and spent a total of more than 42 million to buy dozens of stones. However, there was a piece of stone that was priced at 28 million. That piece of stone was also the largest among all the stones. It took a small cart to load that piece of stone that was 200 to 300 kilograms. Miss Shui, you've been following me for nearly an hour. You should be tired, right? Tan Xiu finally stopped and looked at Shuiyu with a dissatisfied expression. Shuiyu, as though she did not see Tan Xiu's dissatisfied expression, chuckled and said, I'm just curious about you, Mr. Tang. That's why I want to have more contact with you. Furthermore, you're very casual in picking stones, which I admire. Then, do you think I should say that I'm honored? Tan Xiu said indifferently. No need to say that. Just let me see if the stones you picked can be cut into jades and jadeites. Shuiyu shook her head. Tan Xiu thought for a moment and asked, if I ask you to leave now, will you leave? I'll leave and chat with Master Huang. Shuiyu nodded. Let's get straight to the point. Tan Xiu said. What do you want? Shuiyu said, I really just want to know more about you, nothing else. I heard from Master Huang that you're the young divine doctor of Star City Chinese Medical Hospital. You're able to achieve such great attainments in Chinese medicine at such a young age, which shows that you're not an ordinary person. Perhaps, it's very likely that you're the same kind of person as me. Tan Xiu's brows stretched out as he said with a faint smile, then I want to know, what kind of person are you? And where are you from? Shuiyu hesitated for a moment before she gently raised her hands and made a series of hand gestures. Then, she said, if you can understand my hand gestures, you'll know who I am and where I come from. Tan Xiu was dumbfounded. He simply could not understand the meaning of Shuiyu's hand gestures. After giving it a thought, he simply let go of his vigilance and said, maybe we're not the same kind of people. I can't understand your hand gestures, let alone guess where you come from. Since you want to follow me, I can't throw away my face and drive you away. So follow me if you want to. But there was a bit of disappointment in Shui Yu's eyes. But after hearing that Tan Xiu was willing to let her follow him, she still asked, but what? In this society where men and women are equal, you can't just look at the cart drivers working so hard and not help them, can you? Tan Xiu said. Look at this cart driver. He's pushing 200 to 300 kilograms of stones. Isn't it very strenuous? Shui Yu was stunned. She looked at Tan Xiu with disbelief. She opened her mouth, yet she didn't know what to say. He actually wants me to help the cart driver push the cart. Tan Xiu's expression turned cold. He deliberately showed an impatient look and waved his hand. If you want to push the cart, then do it. If you don't want to, then just leave. I don't need to go to Master Huang's place to cut the stones, but I can't have any idlers following me. As his voice faded away, he directly turned around and walked away. Shui Yu was dumbfounded as she watched Tan Xiu walk more than 10 meters away. Only then did she sober up from her shock. She shook her head, at a loss whether she had to laugh or cry. Watching the cart driver strenuously pushing the cart, she quickly caught up with him and helped push the cart. At the intersection dozens of meters away, Chu Yuan, who had an ordinary appearance but exuded the aura of a superior, walked out from another aisle with a young man and a young woman. Behind them, 2 cart drivers were pushing 2 carts filled with stones, following them at a moderate pace. Huh! Chu Yuan's footsteps suddenly came to a halt. He saw the carts coming from the left, and his eyes finally fell on Shui Yu, who was wearing a mink fur coat and a veil. Stunned. Confused. Never in his wildest dreams did Chu Yuan think that the famous jade beauty, Shui Yu, would one day help the cart driver to push the cart under the watchful eyes of many people. Since when did she need to do it herself? Boss, it's Jade Beauty. The young man behind Chu Yuan had an incredulous look on his face and said in a low voice. I saw her, said Chu Yuan with a nod. At this moment, Tan Xiu had already seen Chu Yuan, the young man and woman behind him, and the 2 cart drivers. His eyes swept over the 2 carts, and his mind recalled the words Long Zhengyu had told him. Chu Yuan, the successor of Shanghai's Imperial Garden, the owner of the Imperial Brilliant Group, and the founder of Imperial Fortune Venture. Perhaps he and Shui Yu are the same kind of people. Tan Xiu turned his head and glanced at Shui Yu, who was helping to push the cart, and then continued to walk forward without changing his expression. When he passed by Chu Yuan, his eyes glanced at the blood-colored jade pendant hanging on Chu Yuan's waist. Blood jade was a very precious jade, and any piece of it was a priceless treasure. At the back, Shui Yu also saw Chu Yuan. She raised her brows and let go of the cart. She stopped in front of Chu Yuan and softly said, Greetings to the young master of the Imperial Garden. Chu Yuan let out a faint smile and glanced at the 6 carts, saying, Jade Beauty, we haven't seen each other for 2 years, right? I didn't expect that we would meet again in Star City after the last time we parted in Shanghai. You didn't come here just to gamble on stones, did you? I think you misunderstood, Chu Yuan, said Shui Yu. I didn't buy these stones. The one in front is Mr. Tang, and I'm helping him. Mr. Tang. Chu Yuan looked surprised and followed Shui Yu's eyes. His eyes lingered on Tan Xiu's back for a few times before he asked with a frown, Who's Mr. Tang? Shui Yu pointed to the front and said while walking, He has profound attainments in the medical field and is also a very interesting person. Very interesting. Chu Yuan slightly furrowed his brows and was secretly vigilant. He had a good impression of Shui Yu, and everyone in the Imperial Garden knew about it. Even though he had never seen Shui Yu's true appearance, he was secretly fascinated by her cold and piercingly cold character that was hidden within her gentle and warm as jade character. He was a proud man who used his real ability to defeat hundreds of outstanding peers in the Imperial Garden and eventually became the first successor of the Imperial Garden. He had seen countless women, but only Xueyu could attract him. Now, seeing that Xueyu was unexpectedly interested in another young man, he couldn't help but be vigilant. "How about taking me to meet him?" Chu Yuan asked seemingly casually, but his eyes were completely locked on Xueyu's eyes. He believed that eyes are the window to the soul, and he wanted to see more information from her eyes. Xueyu hesitated for a moment and said, "Mr. Tang's character is very strange. I'm afraid that he will be disgusted if I take you to see him. In fact, I'm also thick-skinned enough to barely be able to follow him." "Ah, he said that he doesn't like idlers following him, so I can only help him push the cart." Chu Yuan squinted his eyes. He felt that he was interested in this Mr. Tang. Ordinary young men who saw Xueyu, even if they couldn't see her appearance, could make them drool just by looking at her figure, temperament, and beautiful eyes. But this Mr. Tang, did he want to play hard to get? Or was he really not interested in Xueyu? "Where are you going?" asked Chu Yuan. "He rented Master Huang's shed," said Xueyu. Chapter 629. Tan Xiu strode into the shed and looked at the chatting Master Huang and the old man in Tang suit sitting on the sofa. He lightly smiled and said, "I'm afraid I'll have to trouble you today, Master Huang. I bought a lot of stones. I wonder if you can cut them all this afternoon." Master Huang directly got up and looked at the 6 carts behind Tan Xiu. He forced a smile and said, "I can't cut them all unless I work overtime today." "It's all right. Just do your best," said Tan Xiu. "Let's continue tomorrow if we can't cut them all." Master Huang agreed and called the 6 workers who were pushing the carts, asking them to move the stones to the stone-cutting machine. Just as he finished moving the stones, his complexion slightly changed. His expression became somewhat respectful as he quickly walked to greet Chu Yuan and Xueyu who had just come in. "Greetings to the Imperial Garden's young master." "Greetings to the Imperial Garden's young master." The old man in Tang's suit also greeted respectfully. "There's no need to be so polite, garden elders," said Chu Yuan with a smile. "I just happened to meet Jade Beauty and learned that Mr. Tang rented this shed, so I came here to have a look." "Nice to meet you, Mr. Tang." "Nice to meet you, Mr. Chu," said Tan Xiu lightly. Chu Yuan stared blankly and looked at Tan Xiu, asking, "Do you know me, Mr. Tang? You're the successor of Shanghai's Imperial Garden, the owner of the Imperial Brilliant Group, and the founder of Imperial Fortune Venture. Wouldn't I be ignorant if I didn't know such a famous and influential figure like you?" Tan Xiu lightly smiled. Upon hearing this, Chu Yuan's vigilance toward Tan Xiu increased a bit. The other party knew his situation very well, but he didn't know the other party's situation, which made him feel terrible. However, he was extremely intelligent. Despite not liking this feeling, he still calmly said, "You must be joking, Mr. Tang. May I know what kind of work Mr. Tang is engaged in?" "I'm just a student," said Tan Xiu. Pointing to the stones unloaded from the cart, Chu Yuan lightly smiled and said, "A student who can afford so many stones? I'm afraid such a student is rare, no?" Tan Xiu lightly said, "Mr. Chu, you don't need to beat around the bush to inquire about my identity. If you really want to know, you can ask me directly. I'm very stupid, and I'm too lazy to use my brain." Chu Yuan raised his brows and said, "Since Mr. Tang is a straightforward person, then I'll get straight to the point. I'm very curious about you, so I want to know Mr. Tang's origin. Perhaps we can become very good friends in the future." Tan Xiu said, "I don't know if we can become friends, but your arrival has affected my affairs. Just now, the Jade Beauty that you mentioned was helping me push the cart, but because of you, she became lazy. Therefore, with Mr. Chu's wealth and status, you should be able to compensate me, right?" "What compensation do you want, Mr. Tang?" asked Chu Yuan with a faint smile. Tan Xiu said, "I'm easy to get rid of. Chu Yuan pondered for a moment before he turned around and pointed to the 2 carts behind him and said, "Since Mr. Tang likes to gamble on stones, how about I compensate you with a stone?" Having said that, he didn't wait for Tan Xiu to speak and directly spread out his hands and said, "Please." Tan Xiu's compensation was just a joke, but he didn't expect that Chu Yuan would take it seriously. He even found that Chu Yuan didn't seem to be joking at all. His eyes were particularly serious. "Mr. Chu is very generous. Then I'll respectfully accept." After saying that, Tan Xiu directly walked to the first cart. As he released his spiritual sense, his fingers constantly stroked the 7 or 8 stones on it. After a while, a strange light appeared in his eyes. He picked up a fist-sized stone and threw it into his pile of stones. "Master Huang, I'll have to trouble you," said Tan Xiu. Master Huang quickly glanced at Chu Yuan, nodded and smilingly said, "I'll start now." Chu Yuan raised his hand and said, "Please wait a moment, Elder Huang. Since fate brought us to meet Mr. Tang here today and we also have common interests, how about we make a bet?" "What kind of bet?" asked Tan Xiu. "You've picked a lot of stones, and I've also picked some," said Chu Yuan smilingly. "How about we each take out 3 stones and hand them over to Master Huang to cut? Let's see whose stones have a higher value. How about it?" Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing and said, "Do you really want to bet?" "Of course," said Chu Yuan straightforwardly. "Besides, I think we should have some stakes for the bet between us." "You decide the stakes," said Tan Xiu without hesitation. Chu Yuan glanced at Shui Yu and smilingly said, "Whoever wins will get the opportunity to invite Jade Beauty to dinner." "Jade Beauty, would you do us the honor?" Shui Yu's eyes wandered back and forth between the 2 men. Though she didn't expect that Chu Yuan would propose such a stake, she was still aware of his intention. He just wanted to win the opportunity to have dinner with her, and at the same time, win the confrontation with Tan Xiu. "It would be my honor." Though Tan Xiu's EQ was not high, his IQ was extremely high. After he instantly understood Chu Yuan's intention, he nodded and said, "I agree." Chu Yuan didn't speak again and turned back to his cart of stones. He ordered the cart driver to unload the stones and repeatedly observed them for 2 minutes before he picked out 3 stones. "I'll use these 3. Chu Yuan looked at Tan Xiu and said. "I have a lot of stones here," said Tan Xiu with a nod. "Master Huang, you can take 3 at will." Master Huang stared blankly while Chu Yuan furrowed his brows. "Take 3 at will? What does he mean? Is he looking down on me? Or does he have full confidence in the stones he picked?" Chu Yuan immediately nodded when he saw Master Huang's inquiring eyes. Master Huang glanced at the pile of stones and then picked 3 stones with a similar size as the ones selected by Chu Yuan. He then looked at Tan Xiu and asked, "What do you think of these 3, Divine Dr. Tang?" "It's good," replied Tan Xiu with an indifferent smile. Chu Yuan's expression suddenly moved and the name, Divine Dr. Tang, echoed in his mind. In a flash, he quickly took out his mobile and read some information from it. After reading it, a cautious look immediately appeared on his face. He even felt a bit regretful because he finally knew Tan Xiu's identity. He was the young divine doctor of Star City Chinese Medical Hospital, the big boss behind the scenes of the magnificent Tang Corporation, and a member of the Tang family in the imperial capital 6 months ago. He was also the most outstanding young talent of the Tang family. He was proficient in music, painting, and was also a peerless genius in the medical field. He was very low-key, yet he unexpectedly rose to fame after many accidents. Tan Xiu didn't know that Chu Yuan had found his information in such a short time. Looking at Master Huang's hesitant expression, Tan Xiu said with a smile, "Master Huang, cut Mr. Chu's stone first. Since this bet was proposed by him, I also want to see his vision." Master Huang nodded. His stone-cutting skills were very good. The first stone was quickly cut into a jade material. Moreover, after he wiped it, he took out a thumb-sized jade material. At the same time, he took out more than a dozen fingernail-sized seeds. Not bad. Standing at the side, Tan Xiu nodded and exclaimed in admiration. Shui Yu stood at the side with a calm expression. She knew that Chu Yuan was an expert in jade and stone gambling. When Chu Yuan left the Imperial Garden, he earned his first windfall through stone gambling. Master Huang put away the jade material and continued to cut the second piece. What made people sigh was that although the second piece of stone also contained green, it was just a little bit. Its total value was not as much as the price of the first piece of stone. The third stone. When Master Huang cut the edge of the stone, the green jadeite could be clearly seen. After he cut and wiped it, the fist-sized jadeite was quickly taken out. The total value of this jadeite is at least 50 million yuan. Master Huang was not only good at stone cutting, but he was also proficient in the value of jade and jadeite. After putting it on the tray, he couldn't help but sigh. A smile appeared on Chu Yuan's face after hearing Master Huang's words. He was quite satisfied with the result. Among the 3 stones that he had selected, except for the second one, which was a little unsatisfactory, the other 2 had risen in value. If they were to be sold, the jade and jadeite taken out from the 2 stones would be worth at least 60 to 70 million yuan. Master Huang, it's time to cut Mr. Tang's stone now, right? Master Huang's expression was a bit complicated. He glanced at Tan Xiu and asked, "Shall I start now, Mr. Tang?" "Let's begin," Tan Xiu said with a smile. Master Huang nodded and carefully looked at the football-sized stone he picked up and then began to cut it. A few minutes later, nearly half of the stone was cut and a milky white jade material appeared. Mutton fat jade? Master Huang was startled and skillfully wiped and cut it. Finally, he took out 2 pieces of mutton fat jade the size of a fruit core as well as dozens of seeds. This time, Shui Yu, on the other hand, looked surprised. She looked at Tan Xiu's calm face and suddenly had a strange feeling. She faintly felt that today's gamble would be a bit interesting. Chu Yuan's expression remained unchanged, but he could only force a wry smile inwardly. It was because he didn't expect that Tan Xiu's luck would be so good as to take out a mutton fat jade from the first stone. Although its value was not as much as what he got, it was, after all, just the first one. There were still 2 more stones that had yet to be cut. "Continue," Tan Xiu said with a faint smile. Master Huang nodded and picked up the second stone and began to cut it. "Red?" Master Huang saw a faint red trace in the stone when he cut it. When he began to wipe it and cut in all directions, the bright red jade material was finally exposed to everyone. "Blood jade, top-grade blood jade." Master Huang's voice trembled a little. It must be known that blood jade was very precious, and top-grade blood jade was a treasure that was hard to find even with money. For example, the jade pendant carved with blood jade on Chu Yuan's waist was outrageously valuable. Shui Yu looked at Tan Xiu in surprise. She didn't expect that there would be blood jade in the pair of stones Tan Xiu bought. Moreover, it was top-grade snow jade. Something's wrong. Shui Yu looked at Tan Xiu's calm expression and a strange tide emerged in her heart. She knew that Tan Xiu had won. Even if the third stone was not cut, this blood jade alone was worth more than the total value of the jade and jadeite obtained by Chu Yuan. "I'm very sorry. Today's update will be 2 hours late due to the dinner. I'm holding multiple jobs and have too many tedious things to do. I hope that brothers and sisters can understand. As long as Jingyi doesn't have any social engagements, she will definitely update on time. In addition, Jingyi will try her best to rush the draft tonight. If there's a chance, she will try her best to update." Chapter 630. Compared to the shock and doubt on Shui Yu's face, Chu Yuan's expression was a bit unnatural. Originally, he had the thought of winning to prove his ability to suppress Tan Xiu. Secondly, he could also invite Shui Yu to dinner. He had even thought of the place to invite Shui Yu to dinner in the presidential suite of the Long's dining hall. However, at this moment, his wishful thinking came to nothing and he even lost the opportunity to invite Shui Yu, which made him a bit angry. Master Huang was a bit excited. After all, being able to cut out a top-grade jade like the blood jade was definitely an honor for a stone-cutting master like him. However, he was also perfectly aware of what the bet between Chu Yuan and Tan Xiu meant for Chu Yuan. It meant that Chu Yuan had lost. However, he still had his own bottom line even though he also came from the Imperial Garden. After taking out the blood jade, he fiddled with it for a while before putting it on the tray and then picked up the third stone material. Master Huang, there's no need to cut it out. I lost. Despite feeling vexed, Chu Yuan still showed an open and above-board manner. He nodded to Tan Xiu and then spoke to Master Huang. Don't worry, Mr. Chu, said Tan Xiu with a faint smile. Even if there was no bet between us, I'd still cut these stones out. Let's continue, Master Huang. Master Huang hesitated for a moment before agreeing to Tan Xiu's words. After the stone-cutting machine cut it out, a green color appeared in front of everyone in just 2 minutes. There's also jade in it. Master Huang was shocked, and the onlookers in the surroundings also looked incredulous. It must be noted that Tan Xiu's 3 stone materials were randomly taken out by Master Huang from a large pile of stones. How could each of them contain jade? Was it Tan Xiu's luck? Or was he really sure that there was jade in these stones? The jade contained in the third stone material was not as good as the first and second stones. But in terms of value, it could be sold for several million yuan if sold. I was careless. Chu Yuan rarely lost. That was because he had a cautious personality. Every time he did something, he would make sure that victory was within his grasp. The result of this bet made him realize that there was something wrong with his mentality. If it wasn't for Jade Beauty, he probably wouldn't have proposed a bet with Tan Xiu. After taking a deep breath, Chu Yuan lightly smiled and said, Mr. Tang is indeed worthy to be the big boss of the magnificent Tang Corporation and the most outstanding disciple of the Tang family in the imperial capital. His attainments in stone gambling had reached the acme of perfection. I, Chu Yuan, wholeheartedly accept my loss. Tan Xiu said in a strange tone, Mr. Chu is very skillful. I didn't expect that you could figure out my identity so clearly in such a short time. Actually, I already knew about Mr. Tang a long time ago, said Chu Yuan with a faint smile. It's just that we just met, so I didn't remember it for a while. It's not that I'm conceited, but there aren't many people in this world who can beat me, but Mr. Tang is qualified. Tan Xiu raised his brows, not willing to say these meaningless words to Chu Yuan anymore. What he needed now was to cut all the stones he had bought. Since the other party already knew his identity, he didn't want to hide it anymore. Since he had already won, he might as well add some more information to let the future successor of the Imperial Garden know that he was not someone to be trifled with. Old Huang, continue cutting the stones. Master Huang looked at Tan Xiu with a strange expression, but he still began to cut the fourth stone with the help of the old man in traditional Chinese attire. There's jade material. There's also this one. How is this possible? As Master Huang continued to cut the stones, pieces of jade were taken out from the stone. More than 2 hours later, a large number of jades and jadites were taken out from more than a dozen stone materials. At this moment, Chu Yuan was shocked. He simply couldn't believe his eyes. It was because each of the stones Tan Xiu bought had jade or jadeite in it, which had broken his understanding of stone gambling. Not only him, but the man and woman behind him were also shocked to the point that it was difficult to be any more shocked. It was because they had never encountered such an evil thing. Shui Yu's beautiful eyes were rippling with extraordinary splendor. Her eyes kept wandering back and forth between the stone materials, jadites, and Tan Xiu. She was at the scene when Tan Xiu bought these stones. She saw with her own eyes that Tan Xiu directly locked the stones and traded with the owners and staff of the shacks. Evil. Strange. Shui Yu found that she really couldn't see through Tan Xiu. Not to mention other aspects, just his performance in stone gambling alone was too terrifying. He was a complete evildoer. Finally, when Master Huang cut the 20th stone material, Shui Yu couldn't help but stare at Tan Xiu and ask, "How did you do it, Mr. Tang?" "I don't understand what you mean," Tan Xiu asked despite already knowing the answer. Even if your luck is so good, it's impossible for you to bet everything correctly, said Xueyu. Jade materials are wrapped in stones. Even if a normal person has extraordinary insight in this aspect, it's still impossible for them to bet everything correctly. I think you should have some means to detect whether there's jade inside the stone material. Tang Xiu found that everyone's eyes were focused on him when Xueyu spoke to him. He immediately grinned and said, "Would you believe me if I told you that my eyes can see through things?" "That's right. Seeing through things. How is that possible?" Xueyu shook her head. "Since it's impossible, then why did you ask?" Tan Xiu lightly smiled. "Everyone has their own secrets. You have yours, and so does Mr. Chu. I have a bit of talent in stone gambling, so there's nothing to fuss about, no?" Xueyu was silent for a few seconds before she suddenly asked, "Can you really see through things?" "I don't know if I can see through things or not," said Tan Xiu with a smile. "But I can see that you're very beautiful. You're definitely a great beauty that's hard to find among thousands of people. Of course, if you can smile more, you'll be even more attractive." "What?" Xueyu's delicate body trembled and a shocked expression burst out of her eyes. Tan Xiu's words were like a clap of thunder that directly blasted inside her heart. Aside from her parents, no one else had ever seen her appearance. She had always worn a veil on her face since she could remember. According to the prophecy of her clan, every woman whose appearance was seen by a man would have her heart seen through, and the trajectory of her life would be seen through. Eventually, she would become that man's woman. This deep-rooted concept caused Xueyu, who came from the mountains of the Miao region, to be shocked and scared by Tan Xiu's words. At this moment, aside from Xueyu, Chu Yuan, who had a bit of love for her, was also frightened. He was very clear about the ancestral roots of the Snow Jade clan. He had wanted to be the first man to unveil Xueyu's veil many times in the past, to become the only man for her. But, if Tan Xiu really saw Xueyu's true appearance, then, even if he had monstrous abilities, he would not be able to get Xueyu. "Please don't joke around, Mr. Tang." Chu Yuan's expression turned extremely serious as he spoke word by word with a serious expression. There was even a trace of hostility in his eyes. Tan Xiu stared blankly for a moment. He looked at Xueyu's aghast expression and then at Chu Yuan's hostile and serious expression. Suddenly, an absurd idea emerged in his mind. He was at a loss whether he had to laugh or cry as he asked, "Miss Xue, is there any strange rule in your clan? For example, which man will marry you after seeing your appearance first?" "Yes." Xueyu's heart was in a mess and her voice was somewhat trembling. Tan Xiu rolled his eyes and snappily said, "What era is this? How can such an unreliable rule still be preserved? Forget it. I was just talking nonsense, so don't take it seriously. Also, I'll give you a piece of advice. Love is not a child's play, and marriage is not a joke. You, just abolish that unreliable rule as soon as possible." After saying that, he didn't want to pay attention to Xueyu and Chu Yuan anymore. He directly looked at Master Huang and said, "Hurry up and cut the stones. I don't have much time. The earlier I take out all the jades from the stone material, the earlier I can go home and have dinner." Xueyu's eyes stared fixedly at Tang Xiu. After a few minutes of silence, she said, "Mr. Tang, since you won the bet with Chu Yuan, you should have dinner with me tonight according to the agreement." Tang Xiu casually waved his hand and said, "Actually, the wager Mr. Chu just proposed was just to make the belle smile. Let's forget about having dinner together. I don't have much time and have to go back to take care of my child at home." "Child at home?" Xueyu frowned and asked, "Is Mr. Tang married and has a child?" "No." Tan Xiu shook his head. "Then what do you mean by having a child at home?" asked Xueyu again. "My disciple is still young," answered Tan Xiu. A struggling look appeared in Xueyu's eyes. After a long while, she slowly said, "I have nothing to do today anyway. Since Mr. Tang has a child at home, then I'll go back with you." But I don't know if Mr. Tang would like to take me home for a meal. Jade Beauty. Chu Yuan's expression was a bit unsightly as he shouted in a deep voice. Shuiyu turned to look at him and lightly said, Imperial Garden's young mistress, is the bet between you and Mr. Tang really just a joke? This, Chu Yuan had never regretted it so much. He didn't want to break his promise, but he also didn't want the woman he liked to have dinner with another man at home. It's just a meal, boss. The young woman beside him suddenly spoke in a low voice. Chu Yuan's body trembled and cold sweat suddenly appeared on his back. He found that his mood was unexpectedly affected by the love affair between a man and a woman. He even had some evil thoughts about Tan Xiu just now. Mind-cleansing incantation. Chu Yuan recited it inwardly and no longer spoke. He didn't even want to look at Shuiyu and Tan Xiu again. With his status and ability, what he was most afraid of was the love affair between a man and a woman. If he was immersed in the love affair between a man and a woman, the door to his heart that he had opened with great difficulty would be closed. His 20 years of effort would be wasted and he would become an ordinary person again. Today's third update is here. Seeking recommendation votes for support. Chapter 631. Standing at the side, Tan Xiu keenly heard the reminder from Chu Yuan's subordinate. He then looked at Chu Yuan and found that there was a faint energy fluctuation coming from his body. This energy fluctuation was not a fluctuation of spiritual force, nor was there any spiritual qi attached to it. Instead, it was somewhat similar to the heart force cultivated by the Buddhist sect. The extreme celestial sect's people are indeed better than the occult sect's people. Tan Xiu sighed inwardly. He turned around and found that Shuiyu was still staring at him without blinking. He suddenly felt a bit of a headache and regretted the words he had unintentionally said just now. He didn't want to provoke a woman, especially a woman with a perfect appearance. In his opinion, the Shuiyu clan was a paranoid bunch who silently abided by the rules left by their ancestors. It was simply a joke for the happiness of their descendants. Sorry, it's not convenient. Tan Xiu's mind raced and finally hardened his heart to refuse. Shuiyu shot a deep look at Tan Xiu and suddenly said with a smile, since it's not convenient, then forget it. I'll stay in Star City and wait for Mr. Tang to have time to fulfill today's bet. Are you a dog skin plaster? Asked Tan Xiu snappily. I'm not a dog skin plaster, said Shuiyu smilingly while shaking her head. As long as Mr. Tang doesn't have dinner with me, I will wait for Mr. Tang. If you don't have dinner with me for a lifetime, I will wait for Mr. Tang for a lifetime. Ugh, the more Tan Xiu listened to Shuiyu's words, the more he felt that something was amiss. If someone didn't know the cause and effect of this matter and rashly heard Shuiyu's words, wouldn't they misunderstand? After thinking about it, Tan Xiu looked at Chu Yuan, who had his eyes closed and didn't speak, and suddenly asked, Mr. Chu, do you have time tomorrow night? How about I treat you to a drink in the most upscale presidential suite in the Long's dining hall? Chu Yuan opened his eyes again, and his originally chaotic state of mind became calm again. Upon hearing Tan Xiu's words, he seemed to have understood Tan Xiu's thoughts. Suddenly, he felt that he was a bit narrow-minded just now. Tan Xiu's meaning was very obvious. He had no interest in Yumeirun. I have time. Chu Yuan smiled faintly. His superior aura was invisibly curtailed. Tan Xiu nodded and said with a smile, Miss Xue, it's not a problem for us to have dinner together, but we didn't say that we can't invite others to have dinner together, right? I'll be waiting for you in the presidential suite of the Long's dining hall. The afternoon passed by quickly. Master Huang had to expend a great deal of energy to finish cutting dozens of stones and take out the jade and jadeite hidden inside. Under the light, he wiped the beads of sweat hanging on his pale face and looked at Tan Xiu, saying, Mr. Tang, I'm fortunate to have accomplished my mission. All the stones had been cut out. All the jade and emeralds are here. Tan Xiu nodded and said, I'll send these things back first. Leave me your address. I'll go back and finish my work, then I'll go find you after I finish eating. Don't worry. I, Tan Xiu, am a man of my word. Since I promised to cure your leg, I will never go back on my word. Thank you, Divine Dr. Tang. Master Huang said gratefully. After learning the hotel where Master Huang was staying, Tan Xiu put away all the jade and jadeite he had taken out from the stones. He then bid farewell to Chu Yuan and Shui Yu and left straight away. Inside the shack, Chu Yuan looked at Tan Xiu's back as he left. His eyes then fell on Shui Yu and calmly asked, "Do you believe he can see your face?" "I don't." Shui Yu shook her head. After saying that, she hesitated for a moment before speaking again, "But it's better to believe it than not. If you really saw my face, then I can't violate the ancestral rule of my Shui clan." Chu Yuan forced a wry smile inwardly and said, "Tan Xiu's identity is very suspicious. Though I've learned a lot about him and know that he's the magnificent Tang Corporation's behind-the-scenes boss and a member of the Tang family in the imperial capital, I always feel that he should have other identities." "You mean, he's the same as us?" Shui Yu hesitated. Chu Yuan nodded and said, "Otherwise, how do you explain his gains from stone gambling today? Each stone material contains jade or jadeite, and the quality is very good. I've estimated his earnings today. If he were to sell all those jadeites and jadeites, he can get at least billions of wealth." "That much?" Shui Yu was surprised. Master Huang interjected from the side, "He definitely has that much. Just those blood jades alone can fetch a sky-high price if they are sold. I may not have accumulated much wealth, but I won't hesitate to buy them if he's willing to sell them to me for 1 billion. Let alone 1 billion, I'm willing to buy them even if the price increases several times." Chu Yuan sighed. The Imperial Garden has existed for hundreds of years, and generations of ancestors have been continuously accumulating them, yet the number of blood jades they have finally obtained can be counted on one's fingers. Shui Yu fell into silence. She recalled the moment when she met Tan Xiu. The feeling of having her heart peeped made her secretly feel cold. "Do you think he's someone from the occult sect?" asked Master Huang suddenly. "Is there anyone from the occult sect surnamed Tang?" Chu Yuan asked back. "No." Master Huang shook his head. "But he entered the occult sect and learned the occult sect's techniques from its elders. He should be considered as a member of the occult sect, right?" Chu Yuan slightly turned his head and spoke to the young man next to him, "Send someone to investigate him. No matter what other identity he has, you must find it out for me." "I advise you not to make this decision, Chu Yuan," said Shui Yu all of a sudden. "He's very evil. There are very few people in this world who can make me dread them, but he gives me a faint feeling of dread. There's one thing you may not know. He can't see through his numerology and spirit." "What did you say?" Chu Yuan exclaimed in shock. He knew a bit about Shui Yu's special ability. She could see the numerology of any ordinary person and their own spirit, except for those who were part of the three styles. Only those with special abilities could not be seen through by her. "This Tan Xiu, should I still send someone to investigate him, boss?" asked the young man in a low voice. Chu Yuan was silent for a moment before he forced a smile and said, "Since Jade Beauty has said so, then don't investigate him for the time being. It's a taboo to be investigated by others. We still don't know his details, so we can't become enemies with him for the time being." Tan Xiu left the convention center and stored all the jades into his interspatial ring in a hidden place. It was already 8 p.m. by the time he rushed home. He saw his parents talking with Tang Xiaohan and Gu Yin, so he greeted them and returned upstairs as fast as he could. Today, he had obtained a lot of jade materials, and he would start refining a batch of jade bottles and jade boxes if there was nothing very important. Of course, he also needed to refine a batch of array discs to arrange a feng shui array. The reconstruction of 9 Dragons Island would be completed next year, and he would need a huge number of array discs to arrange a large array on the entire island. The jades he obtained today were far from enough. After taking a shower and changing his clothes, he went downstairs again. Su Lingyun came out of the kitchen and smilingly said to Tan Xiu, "I've heated the food for you. Let's eat first." "All right." Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and followed Su Lingyun to the dining room. Where did you go this afternoon, Xiu? Asked Su Lingyun curiously. Chen Zhizhong came to our house today and found that you weren't home, so he left the things he brought and left. Tan Xiu stared blankly for a moment. He didn't understand why Chen Zhizhong would come here. If he had something to look for him, he could have called him directly. After giving it a thought, he took out his mobile and dialed Chen Zhizhong's number. Master. Chen Zhizhong's voice came out of the phone. I heard you came to my house this afternoon. Is something the matter? Asked Tan Xiu. I just got 1,000-year-old wild ginseng this morning and wanted to send it to you, but I found that you weren't home, Master, said Chen Zhizhong. Also, there's one more thing. Thank you for staying in the imperial capital. All right, I understand what you mean, interrupted Tan Xiu with a smile. Your son is my grand disciple, so his business is naturally my business. Don't do these superficial things with me in the future. That's right, I want to ask you something. How much do you know about jades? Chen Zhizhong let out a hollow laugh twice and then said, I know a bit about it. Master, you also know that people like us who have some money like to get some good jades. I once learned some skills from a jade master. That's right, do you need jades, Master? I have some good quality mutton fat jade and nephrite jade in my house. Keep those pieces of yours first. Tan Xiu said. They will be useful to you later. What I want to ask you is, are you interested in doing a jade business? Chen Zhizhong was confused. Jade business? What's your plan, Master? I need a lot of jades. The higher the quality, the more I need them, said Tan Xiu. If you're willing to dabble in the jade business, money won't be a problem. I can invest some money in you, so it'll be easier to get jades later. Chen Zhizhong forced a smile and said, Master, I'm willing, but I don't have the strength. Apart from the liquid capital of the Endless Virtue Pharmaceutical to maintain its business, the rest of the money is invested in the new city. So, I can give you 5 billion yuan first, said Tan Xiu. Chen Zhizhong was silent for a few seconds and then seriously said, I'm willing to give it a try, Master. A trace of a smile was revealed on Tan Xiu's face as he nodded and said, since you're willing to give it a try, I'll transfer the money to your account tomorrow. Remember, I'm not asking you to make a lot of money as long as you can get a lot of precious jades. Also, there's one more thing I want to tell you. There's something wrong with the person in charge of your Endless Virtue Pharmaceutical in Blue City. Perhaps the person in charge of your business in other cities also has some problems. You can check it yourself. Chen Zhizhong was secretly startled and quickly asked, what did you find, Master? Someone is selling precious medicinal herbs behind your back, said Tan Xiu. Chen Zhizhong's complexion greatly changed as he said in a deep voice, I got it, Master. I'll clearly investigate this matter and deal with it. All right. Tan Xiu replied and directly hung up the phone. Chapter 632. After dinner, Tan Xiu didn't immediately rush to the hotel where Master Huang was staying but drove to a small hotel in the Old River Street district. Mo and 10 experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall had arrived at Star City and were staying in this small hotel. Oh, you've worked hard. After seeing Mo, Tan Xiu found that the burly man was now as majestic as an iron tower. A smile hung on his angular face, yet his every movement had the demeanor of a grandmaster. Upon seeing Tan Xiu again, Mo's eyes gleamed with excitement as he respectfully saluted and said, It's my honor to be able to serve boss. It's not hard at all. You'll stay here tonight, said Tan Xiu with a smile. I'll get a house tomorrow as your lodging. You'll follow me and work for me later. The rest will guard the lodging and wait for my order at any time. Understood. Mo and the 10 experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall respectfully replied. Tan Xiu didn't stay here for long. After leaving with Mo, he hurried to the hotel where Master Huang was staying. What he didn't expect was that aside from Master Huang, Shuiyu and Chu Yuan were also waiting for him in the hotel. Mr. Tang, we heard that you're a young divine doctor and learned that you're going to treat old Huang's leg tonight, so we followed you to see your superb medical skills. You won't blame us, will you? Said Chu Yuan with a smile. As the saying goes, one never slaps a smiling face. Although Tan Xiu was disgusted with the duo following him like a dog's skin plaster, he didn't want to become enemies with them for no reason. After replying to them with indifference, he took out the silver needles he carried and said, "You two can help me since you followed me. Go get a basin of hot water. The higher the temperature, the better. Also, get 2 clean white towels." Chu Yuan was a bit helpless. He had a distinguished identity, yet he was now being ordered around by Tan Xiu like a waiter. He quickly glanced at Shuiyu and found that she was indifferent, so he immediately forced a smile and said, "I'll go now." Tan Xiu nodded and signaled Master Huang to sit down. He rolled up his trousers and pinched the joints of his legs with his fingers. He gently massaged the acupoints of Zhenyangguan, Yinlingquan, Dubi, and Zisanli on his left leg. At the same time, strands of chaotic force entered the 4 acupoints through his fingers. "You must have suffered a lot, right?" Tan Xiu raised his head and asked calmly. Master Huang forced a smile and said, "Yeah. These years, every time it rains, my knees hurt badly." Tan Xiu said, "I'm not talking about cloudy days and rainy days. I'm talking about why your knee was injured. There are a few scars on your leg, brand scars, and there are cut marks on the tendons of your foot, but the tendons are not injured. He must have been tortured by someone during interrogation, right?" Master Huang's face froze and he incredulously said, "You can tell that I've been tortured just from the scars on my leg? You also have scars on your neck and eyebrows," Tan Xiu said with a light smile. "So I speculated that you should have a lot of scars on your upper body." Master Huang felt relieved after hearing it. He forced a smile and said, "I've indeed been tortured before. That's an old crime. Just a little bit more, and my life would have been in danger. Fortunately, my companion arrived in time, else the tendons of my limbs and hands would have been cut off." Tan Xiu nodded without a word. At the door. Just as Chu Yuan stepped out of the door, his complexion slightly changed. His eyes were locked on Mo Ao, who was standing outside the door, and a chill suddenly ran down his spine. In a flash, he moved a step away and pulled some distance from Mo Ao. The environment he grew up in had given him a strong sense of danger. He could sense a deep threat from Mo Ao, as though a terrifying fierce beast was lurking around him and peeping at him. "Who are you?" Chu Yuan was silent for a few seconds as he vigilantly looked at Mo Ao and asked. "I'm Tan Xiu, my boss," said Mo Ao with a cold and detached face. Chu Yuan slightly furrowed his brows. Although he had faintly guessed it, he was still secretly shocked after hearing Mo Ao's words. He was a martial arts expert, and 8 or 10 ordinary strong guys were not his match. What's more, he also had a special technique. Once he used it, he could easily deal with 3 to 5 martial arts grandmasters. However, he realized that Mo Ao was absolutely not someone those so-called martial arts grandmasters could compare with. If he didn't have a special technique, then it was likely that he had taken a step in martial arts and reached a higher level. "You're really blessed, Tan Xiu," Chu Yuan slowly said and turned to leave quickly. As Chu Yuan fetched some hot water and 2 clean white towels, Tan Xiu stopped the leg massage. He took out the silver needles and pierced them into Master Huang's left leg. Afterward, he took out a surgical knife from his pocket and used the alcohol cotton he brought to disinfect it before directly cutting Master Huang's knee muscles. "Oh. It doesn't hurt." Master Huang was shocked. He didn't expect that Tan Xiu would use a knife. Even if it was a knife, he didn't expect that Tan Xiu would not give him anesthetics. He thought that it would be very painful, but the knife cut the muscle without any pain. Tan Xiu explained, "I'll seal your nerves with the silver needles. You won't feel any pain even if I cut your leg from the knee." Master Huang suddenly understood and looked at Tan Xiu with reverence in his eyes. The cut Tan Xiu used to cut the muscle was not big, but it was very deep. Master Huang could feel that the tip of the knife had pierced the bone. After finishing all this, Tan Xiu took out a small porcelain bottle from his pocket and took out the body-refining liquid from it. He dripped a drop of it and then took out the needle and thread to suture. Kneel in the hot water basin and soak for 2 minutes. Tan Xiu directly said to Master Huang after suturing the wound. Master Huang looked at the steaming hot water. The water temperature was obviously very high. He hesitated for a moment and asked, "Divine Dr. Tang, my wound has just been sutured. If I put the sutured wound in the hot water, will it?" "No, it won't," Tan Xiu interrupted him. Master Huang could only force a wry smile and kneel in the hot water after hearing it. He didn't feel the slightest pain. Instead, he felt a cool and refreshing feeling in his leg joints, which made him stare with a shocked expression. After the cool and refreshing feeling came a burst of lust, followed by warmth. The three feelings cycled and alternated, gradually merging into a special feeling. Ring, ring, ring. At this time, his cell phone rang. Tan Xiu took out his mobile and looked at the caller ID. He found that it was Kang Xia, so he picked it up and asked, "What's up?" Manager He Dong, who is in charge of the scar removal cream product, was resting at home half an hour ago when someone suddenly came to visit, said Kang Xia. They are trying to obtain the scar removal cream formula through coercion and bribery. A total of 2 people, a man and a woman. The man is a middle-aged man and the woman is very young. Tan Xiu's expression changed and he asked in a deep voice, "Where are they now?" "They're in the old River Street district, in a very ordinary residential house," said Kang Xia. After manager he welcomed them into the house, he quietly called me. I heard their conversation and also sent some people to the old River Street district. Our people are now keeping an eye on them. There are only 2 of them?" asked Tang Xiu. 6 people in total, said Kang Xia. That man and woman just entered Manager He's house. There are 2 more people downstairs and outside the residential area where Manager He lives. They are now in the residential house in the old River Street district. Send me the detailed address. I'll immediately send some people there, said Tan Xiu in a deep voice. Also, I'll be there right away. All right. Kang Xia replied and then hung up the phone. After receiving Kang Xia's message, Tan Xiu immediately called Mo Ao inside and said in a deep voice, "Remember this address and immediately inform your people to rush here. Remember, the people inside must not be allowed to leave. Also, our people are in the vicinity. Don't clash with them." Understood. Mo Ao immediately complied. Tan Xiu signaled Master Huang to move his knee out of the hot water and let him sit on the sofa. He then pulled out the silver needles from his leg and said, "I have an urgent matter and need to leave. The treatment is over. Soak yourself in this method 2 to 3 times a day for tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. The water temperature is best to be around 60 to 70 degrees. Don't exert any force on your left leg for the next few days. Your internal injuries will be completely healed after a few days. I'll keep it in mind." Master Huang nodded. Tan Xiu then looked at Chu Yuan and Shui Yu and said, "I won't be accompanying you too. Remember to meet me in the presidential suite of the Long's dining hall tomorrow night. I'll be waiting for you." Having said that, he immediately left with Mo Ao. Inside the room, Chu Yuan raised his hand to touch his chin. His eyes flickered as he slowly said, listening to what Tan Xiu just said, "There seems to be some action tonight. Moreover, he seems to have a lot of men under him." Shui Yu also thoughtfully said, "Shall we follow and have a look? It's a good show. Maybe we can learn more about Tan Xiu." Chu Yuan shook his head and forced a smile, "Forget it. Though we both have some ability, it's hard to guarantee that we won't be discovered by Tan Xiu's men. That guy gives me a feeling like there's a wild beast around me. It's very oppressive." Shui Yu nodded silently. As a matter of fact, she also had the same feeling since Mo Ao entered the room. She even secretly observed and found that Mo Ao's numerology was very peculiar and difficult to deduce. She could speculate about Mo-O's numerology for the next 6 months and found that Mo-O would definitely have a good fortune. However, she couldn't see Mo-O's spirit. She couldn't see it, but she could feel it. It was very strong. Chu Yuan walked to the window and stood quietly for a few minutes. He watched as Tan Xiao and Mo-O hurriedly boarded a car outside and left at a very fast speed. Suddenly, he turned around and said with a smile, "I'm really interested in Tan Xiao now. I don't think I'll be lonely in the future. He's very mysterious, and I'm also very interested in him," said Shuiyu. The smile on Chu Yuan's face instantly froze upon hearing it. When a woman was interested in a man, the final result would be. Chapter 633. The Star City's River Street Old District was a residential area that had yet to be developed. The traffic network extended in all directions, and there were many alleys and alleys. If someone was not familiar with this area, it would be very easy to get lost in the alleys. Budin Alley. Outside the residential house numbered 01966, 2 young men were squatting by the door, smoking and chatting, but their sharp eyes would sweep across the alleys on both sides from time to time. Under the dim street light, if anyone passed by, they would be scrutinized seriously. Suddenly, one of the young men said in a low voice, "Old goat, why do I have a feeling of dread? It seems like something bad is about to happen." The expression of the youth called Old Yang slightly changed. He vigilantly glanced around and said, "Don't scare me. Last time when we were in Guangyang province, you and Haizi were dealing with the bodies by the river. This feeling was exactly the same. When the police finally arrived, you jumped into the river and ran away, but Haizi was shot dead on the spot. We've all said that you have an amazing sixth sense." Blackie smiled bitterly. "I really didn't scare you. This feeling is similar to that time in Guangyang province." Old Yang frowned and pondered for a while before throwing the cigarette butt at his feet and saying, "You keep watch here. I'll go inside and tell Brother Cheng. If he believes us, we'll immediately withdraw." Blackie nodded silently. Inside a 6-story residential building 2 kilometers away, Kang Xia was observing the residential house number 01966 with a pair of binoculars. 2 bodyguards stood beside her, and one of them was also holding a pair of binoculars. She said, "Chief Kang, according to my observation, there should be 8 people inside. Other than the 6 people who went to Mr. He's place, there are still 2 people left here." Kang Xia put down the binoculars, looked at the time and said, "How long will it take for boss to arrive?" The bodyguard said, "The boss has just arrived. He's only a kilometer away from the target's courtyard. Also, boss should have transferred a group of people from the Everlasting Feast Hall's HQ in Jingmen Island. I found 6 of our own people near the courtyard." Kang Xia's eyes lit up and immediately said, "Let's go there immediately." The bodyguard holding the binoculars forced a smile and said, "Chief Kang, I'm afraid I miscalculated. Boss and the others have arrived. Look." Kang Xia hurriedly lifted the binoculars and saw that more than a dozen figures had appeared around the courtyard. Some of them were experts from the Everlasting Feast Hall who stayed in Star City, while she didn't know the other 8. However, these people were agile and nimble. They easily climbed up the roof from the left, right, and even the back. "It's time." Seeing this scene, Tang Xia's heart was as clear as snow. Her guess was right. When Tan Xiao arrived at the alley of the courtyard, he had already issued an arrest order. As for Haizi, who was squatting at the door and smoking, even though he was on guard against the 2 middle-aged men, when the 2 middle-aged men approached him and suddenly attacked him, he didn't even have the time to pull out his pistol from his waist. The sharp dagger was already pressed against his neck. Bang! The courtyard door was kicked open. When Tan Xiao arrived, he merely glanced coldly at Blackie before walking straight into the courtyard. The 2 men in the courtyard had already been captured by the 4 experts. Their mouths were covered, and sharp knives were placed on their throats. In the house. Listening to Old Yang's report, Chen Cheng knitted his brows and silently pondered about the issue of staying or leaving. Suddenly, he heard the sound of the courtyard door and immediately pulled out his pistol from his waist. He dashed to the window and vigilantly looked outside. Something happened. Chen Cheng's complexion instantly turned extremely unsightly after seeing the scene outside. He didn't expect that they would be discovered even though they were extremely careful to hide their whereabouts. Judging from the situation outside, it was likely that the other party had already made all the arrangements. Get ready to fight. We must rush out even if we have to risk our lives. Chen Cheng looked at the other 4 people in the room and spoke with a grim expression. The only woman was smoking a cigarette while fiddling with the ring on the ring finger of her left hand with her right hand. Her eyes were cold and she released a fierce aura. She had committed murder countless times. Even though she wasn't an assassin, she thought that she was more powerful than many of them. The other party may be from the Magnificent Tang Corporation. I don't know about the security force of the Magnificent Tang Corp, but I believe they won't send too many people. Otherwise, it will cause a big sensation. So, we must defend first. Kill as many of them as possible, and then we'll find a chance to escape, said the woman with a calm expression. Chen Cheng frowned and looked at her. Then, he nodded silently and said, "We have guns in our hands. Even if they surround us, the probability of them having guns is not big. So don't be afraid. Just wait for my order and shoot." Old Yang also pulled out his pistol. Nearly all of them were equipped with guns this time. As he approached the door, he gently pushed it open and aimed the black muzzle outside. "Old Yang, shoot the guy holding Hazy with a dagger. Your marksmanship is one of the best among us here, so be sure to shoot him dead," ordered Chen Cheng. "No problem." A bloodthirsty look flashed in Old Yang's eyes. After replying, he aimed the muzzle at the middle-aged man holding Hazy. He counted to 3 in his heart and directly pulled the trigger. Bang! A gunshot sounded and the bullet passed through the door crack straight to the man. In the next moment, the man's expression shifted and he immediately moved Hazy's body, causing the bullet to hit him in an instant. Tan Xiao, who was standing at the forefront, immediately shouted after he found that the bullet wasn't aimed at him, "Attack! I want him alive!" Bam! Bam! The windows on both sides of the house were smashed and smashed. 2 ghostly figures instantly rushed into the house. Their movements were extremely fast. Chen Cheng's group of 5 only saw a blur before the pistols in their hands were snatched away. What made the 5 of them feel as if their souls were about to leave their bodies was that their wrists had been forcefully broken. "Don't move if you don't want to die." The 2 of them aimed the 4 pistols they snatched at Chen Cheng's group of 4. As for the man who wasn't targeted by the muzzle, his neck had been broken and he fell limply to the ground. Chen Cheng was scared inwardly, but he forcibly maintained a calm expression on his face. He stared at the middle-aged man and shouted, "Who the hell are you? Don't you know that it's illegal to trespass a private house?" "Is that so?" Tan Xiao strode into the room. His eyes glanced at them and then fell on Chen Cheng. He then sneered and said, "Illegal? A desperado dares to talk to me about the law. Don't you think it's ridiculous? Who the hell are you?" Chen Cheng shouted. Under his gaze, Tan Xiao walked to a chair at the side and sat down. He lit a cigarette and took a puff. As the smoke ring was puffed out, he indifferently said, "You covet my things, yet you ask me who I am instead? I wonder if you're too forgetful. Or are you just an idiot?" Chen Cheng's complexion drastically changed all of a sudden. His breathing became rapid at this moment. He stared at Tan Xiao and incredulously said, "You're Tan Xiao? The Magnificent Tang Corporation's big boss? It seems that you've investigated me in detail." Tan Xiao sneered. "That's right. I'm Tan Xiao, the Magnificent Tang Corporation's big boss, a real tycoon." Chen Cheng's face was ashen. Since Tan Xiao had come here, his intention to take the opportunity to escape had been dealt a severe blow. He was a smart man who had experienced great storms and waves. Naturally, he knew very well that he and the others were going to die here today. Winner takes all. since we've fallen into your hands, it's up to you if you want to kill us. Chen Cheng took a deep breath. He raised his hand to touch his forehead and quickly winked at the woman. The woman understood tacitly and instantly dashed toward Tan Xiu. Mo, who was behind Tan Xiu, flashed in front of Tan Xiu and fiercely kicked the woman's abdomen. Moreover, after kicking the woman until she vomited blood and was sent flying, he dashed in front of Chen Cheng and violently punched Chen Cheng until he was unconscious. Tie them all up, Tan Xiu coldly ordered. 10 minutes later, when he hurriedly arrived with 2 bodyguards, a total of 7 living enemies were all tied up. Well done, boss. Kang Xia was very satisfied with the result. Even though she was very clear about Tan Xiu's strength, she was still afraid that Tan Xiu would be injured. At this moment, seeing that Tan Xiu was safe and sound, she immediately felt relieved and praised him. Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and said, "If my guess is correct, apart from this man and woman who went to look for Manager He, the rest are probably just small fries. Kang Xia, you go outside and wait. I need to torture them and get the answers I want to know." Kang Xia hesitated for a moment before she nodded and left. As the door was closed, Tan Xiu asked Mo to wake Chen Cheng and lightly said, "Since you've inquired about my identity, I believe you should know that I'm the young divine doctor of Star City Chinese Medical Hospital. I'm a divine doctor who can pull people back from the bridge of helplessness. Therefore, I'm going to torture you. You should know the torture of 1,000 cuts. I can guarantee that I can cut you 1,000 times and make you live for 2 days. Even if you want to commit suicide, I'm afraid you won't be able to do it." Chen Cheng sneered, "Since I dared to come to Star City, I actually have the determination to die. I'm not afraid of torture. Bring it on if you have the ability. I'm not a hero if I even frown." Tan Xiu sneered, "Then I'll let you taste the feeling of separating tendons and dislocating bones first, and then I'll let you taste the feeling of living a life worse than death." After saying that, his hands constantly slapped Chen Cheng's body and he controlled his strength very well. After just 10 seconds, he retreated a few steps and sat back on the chair. On the other side, the woman was also woken up. Arg! A heart-wrenching scream came out of Chen Cheng's mouth. The pain of separating tendons and dislocating bones was the most painful feeling he had ever suffered in his life. Tan Xiu looked at the woman with a sneer and lightly said, "It seems that my separating tendons and dislocating bones has a good effect. If you want to try it, I can immediately use it on you." Chapter 634. The threat seemed to have no effect on the woman. She stared blankly at Chen Cheng, who was tied up and twitching on the ground. After half a minute, she slowly turned to look at Tan Xiu. At this moment, she suddenly showed a strange smile to Tan Xiu. "I'll confess." The woman's voice turned a bit hoarse. Tan Xiu frowned and faintly felt that something was wrong. But before he could figure it out, Mo had already strode forward and pinched the woman's cheek with his fingers, making her open her mouth. Mo's expression changed as a foul odor came out of the woman's mouth. He lifted the woman up and punched her in the abdomen, then flipped her upside down with his other hand so that her head was facing down and her feet were facing up. Cough, cough, the woman coughed up blood in pain, but the blood she coughed out was dark red and black. Tan Xiu finally came to his senses. This woman actually committed suicide by taking poison. He had encountered countless people who hid poison in their mouths, that is, in their teeth. But he didn't expect that this woman also had such a suicidal method. After all, he knew Chinese medicine. After quickly checking the woman's physical condition, he helplessly found that the poison she took was too strong. Moreover, it had been a long time since the beginning, so the poison had already eroded her internal organs. Unless he could get an antidote elixir, it would be too difficult to save her. Puff, the dagger swept across the woman's neck. Tan Xiu prevented her from suffering the pain of the poison and directly gave her a quick death, which could also be considered as giving her a quick release. "Wake up another one." Tan Xiu glanced at Chen Cheng, who was convulsing and bleeding from his 7 orifices. He returned to the chair and said slowly, "I'll talk." Chen Qing finally compromised amidst the heart-wrenching roar. You compromised so quickly. Tan Xiu lightly smiled. I still have a lot more ruthless means that I haven't used yet. Why don't you hold on for a few more hours? Don't worry, I can definitely make you suffer double the pain on the premise that you don't die. I'll talk. Chen Qing endured the pain and his fear had reached the limit. He had seen many methods of torture, and at the same time, he was also proficient in all kinds of torture tools, because he had tortured many people to extort confessions from them. But he had never thought that there was a torture method called breaking tendons and dislocating bones. He had never thought that the pain it brought would reach such a terrifying degree. Tang Xiu nodded in response. As Mo dragged Chen Qing in front of him, he relieved the pain of having his tendons and bones dislocated. Then, he watched Chen Qing lying on the ground like a dead dog, panting heavily. He sneered and said, "Tell me everything you know, else you'll suffer a fate worse than death for a long time. I'll also use everything I have to find that Qian fella and dig out the information about your family. I don't believe in the idiotic saying that every debt has a debtor. If you make me unhappy, I will make your family suffer a fate worse than death." Threats. A blatant threat. After listening to Tan Xiu's words, Chen Cheng's heart felt like it had fallen into an ice cave. He found that the Tan Xiu before him was simply not a human, but a complete devil. 2 minutes later, his condition stabilized a lot. He looked up at Tan Xiu with difficulty and asked, "What do you want to know?" Tell me everything you know." Tan Xiu snorted coldly. "You should understand what I mean." Chen Qing bitterly said, "The one who wants to get the technology of the magnificent Tang Corporation's products is Qian Xingwang. He's my boss. If my guess is correct, you should have his specific information. Our plan is very simple. The director of the God's Brewery doesn't want to sell the God's Nectar's formula to us, so we'll get rid of him and bribe another deputy director to replace him. Also, we'll deal with the person in charge of the brewery first. The purpose is to create a diversion to get the technology of the other products of the magnificent Tang Corporation." A cold light flashed in Tan Xiu's eyes as he listened to Chen Cheng's plan. Then, he asked, "Where's Chen Xingwang now?" "He's in Blue City, in the famous garden," answered Chen Cheng. Tan Xiu turned to look at Mo and said in a deep voice, "You'll lead the team to capture Chen Xingwang. Remember, I want him alive. Don't waste your time." Chen Cheng shook his head. "Chen Xingwang will keep talking to us every 6 hours. He'll immediately move if there's a problem with our safety here. There's still an hour and a half before our next call. Aren't you still alive?" Tan Xiu sneered. "I'm alive, but Chen Xingwang doesn't trust me 100%. The one he trusts the most is this woman," said Chen Qing bitterly. "But now that she's dead, Chen Xingwang will sense it when we talk." An hour and a half. Tan Xiu's expression slightly changed. He shot a deep look at Chen Cheng and immediately asked, if you receive Chen Xingwang's call, can you help delay for an hour?" Chen Cheng stared blankly and frowned. "An hour will be difficult since Chen Xingwang is a very suspicious man. But it won't be a problem if it's about half an hour." "No problem. Half an hour it is, then," replied Tan Xiu without hesitation. After saying that, he then dialed his aunt, Tang Min's number and asked, "Auntie, there should be military helicopters in the garrison base in Star City, right?" "Yes, but only a few." Tang Min pondered for a moment before replying. "Do you have the authority to mobilize a military helicopter?" asked Tan Xiu. "I need to send some people from Star City to Blue City immediately. Time is very tight. I only have 2 hours. Tang Min took a deep breath and said, "I can't do it with my authority since I'm not in charge of this area. But your third grandpa can do it. I'll contact him immediately." "All right," replied Tan Xiu. 2 minutes later, Tan Xiu's mobile phone rang and Tang Guixing's voice came from the phone. "Xiu, little Min has told me about your situation on the phone. You can send some people to the garrison base in Star City now. I'll immediately arrange things there. The military helicopter can take off at any time. Alright, I'll have to trouble third grandpa. Tan Xiu replied. After hanging up the phone again, he looked at Mo and said in a deep voice, immediately take some people to the garrison base in Star City. There will be a military helicopter waiting there. Remember, you must arrive at the destination within 2 hours and capture that Qian fella. Understood. Mo respectfully replied and immediately called several experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall to leave. At this moment, Chen Cheng had already sat up. He could clearly hear the content of Tan Xiu's phone call and Tan Xiu's words to Mo. The content of the call caused a storm to rise inside his heart. Never in his wildest dreams did he expect that Tan Xiu could mobilize the military helicopter of the garrison base in Star City with just a phone call. An hour later, Tan Xiu and Kang Xia appeared in the Long's dining hall. Aside from the 6 experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall, the magnificent Tang Corporation's security guards directly left. Among those who followed Chen Cheng, only Chen Cheng himself survived. The rest were all killed and their corpses were destroyed without any trace. Inside a business suite in the Long's dining hall, Tan Xiu stood quietly by the window with his hands behind his back. He watched the bustling city outside, yet he didn't have the slightest mood to appreciate it. That Qian fella was like a fierce beast hiding in the dark. He wasn't afraid of him, but he was worried that the magnificent Tang Corporation's product information would be stolen. Therefore, he needed to get rid of this hidden danger as soon as possible. Don't worry. We'll definitely get rid of him. Kang Xia had never thought of killing people before, let alone breaking the law. But ever since she followed Tan Xiu, she had witnessed Tan Xiu's killing process many times. She had even participated in many of them. She had already become numb to killing people, even though those people were not killed by her own hands. Tan Xiu nodded without a word. He suddenly recalled something and said, if we can deal with that Qian fella today, I plan to take you and Andy to my hometown. What are you going to do there? Kang Xia was confused. I found an earth vein spirit spring in the stone forest behind my hometown, said Tan Xiu. If you cultivate in the spirit spring, your cultivation will advance by leaps and bounds. At the very least, you'll be promoted by 1 or 2 levels. Nowadays, the enemy is hiding in the dark and eyeing us covetously. You and Andy are my people, so I must ensure your safety. Bodyguards are only external protection. If you can have more powerful strength, then I can truly feel relieved. Kang Xia felt warm inside. She gently pulled Tan Xiu's arm and said, I understand. Going to your hometown. Should I prepare some gifts? Isn't Grandma still in her hometown? No need to prepare gifts. Tan Xiu shook his head and smilingly said, I still have something important to do in Star City, so I'm not going back to the Su family village. I'll take you directly to the mountain forest to cultivate after we go back. I'll take you back directly after the cultivation is over. How long do you need to cultivate? Kang Xia asked. I need to arrange the company's affairs in advance. 4 days. Tan Xiu pondered for a moment and said. Blue City, the garden of a famous residence. Qin Xingwang hung up the phone with vigilance in his eyes. Ever since he sent Chen Cheng and the others out, it was the first time that the woman he trusted the most didn't answer his call. Chen Cheng said that she was taking a bath, which made him a bit bewildered. It was because she knew the time of the call. Taking a bath at this time was not her style. Did something go wrong? Qian Xingwang pondered for a moment and suddenly made a decision. He turned to look at the 2 men behind him and said in a deep voice, let's leave this place. You find a way to go next door and take control of the residence there. Yes. The 2 middle-aged men replied and immediately left. A few minutes later, one of them came back and reported, Boss, we've taken control of the family of 3. All right. Qian Xingwang replied and immediately left the room. When he came to the next house, he saw that the family of 3 had been knocked out and tied up. Then, he said, Inform our men to pay close attention to the movements in the vicinity of this residential building. If any strangers approach, report to me immediately. Chapter 635. The cold wind whistled in the dark night. Mo and the 4 experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall quietly approached the garden. According to the specific location given by Qin Cheng, the 5 of them didn't enter from the main entrance but circled to the back of the residential building and easily slipped in through the staircase window. Oh, there are 4 suspicious targets around this residential building. Should we clean them up first? Or directly go upstairs to catch them? Asked an expert of the Everlasting Feast Hall in a low voice. Mo was in charge of this operation, so the other 4 people obeyed his orders. After thinking about it, Mo seriously said, let's directly catch that surnamed Xian. As long as we catch him, the mission will be completed. There will be no risk after we clean up the others. Shortly after, the 5 people arrived at the floor where Qian Xingwang was staying. After confirming the room number, Mo gestured to a thin middle-aged man. The middle-aged man then took out 2 curved iron wires and easily opened the door lock. No one. The 5 people looked around but didn't find anyone. The tea in the cup is still hot, and the smell of smoke in the room has yet to disperse. This means that the other party just left not long ago, said Mo in a deep voice. Brother He, you're an expert in tracking enemies. Do you have any way to find them? The thin middle-aged man pondered for a moment and judged, since the other party just left and there are still 4 suspicious people downstairs, I suspect that our targets should still be in this residential building. Leave it to me, I'll find them in a few minutes. After saying that, he took out a plastic bag from his pocket with some yellow powder inside. When he came to the door, he sprinkled the yellow powder on the floor and took out a spray bottle and sprayed it on the powder. Soon after, footprints appeared on the powder. Next door. The thin middle-aged man stared blankly for a moment before he immediately stood up and gestured to Mo. Open the door. Mo quickly ordered. When the thin middle-aged man quickly opened the door lock with 2 curved iron wires, Mo instantly pushed the door open and his figure dashed into the room lightning fast. Who is it? Qin Xingwang, who had always been on guard, quickly opened the door lock. The speed of Mo's group of 5 was also too fast. It was so fast that he couldn't even pull out his pistol before a sharp dagger was already on his neck. Bang bang, the other 2 people in the room were directly knocked down and restrained. Mo pinched Qin Xingwang's neck and sneered, What's your name? Who are you people? Qin Xingwang didn't answer but asked instead. You don't need to care about who we are, sneered Mo. Just tell me your name, otherwise I don't mind letting you bleed. My surname is Qin. Qin Xingwang's heart felt like it had fallen into an ice cave. His face was ashen as he spoke. He had already figured out that he had been betrayed by Qin Cheng. That phone call from before was completely a lie. The woman he trusted the most must have been killed by the enemy, and Qin Cheng was helping the enemy to stall for time. His goal was to wait for the enemy to arrive and then capture him. Mo raised his eyebrows. After knocking Qin Xingwang out with a punch, he rummaged through his wallet and found Qin Xingwang's ID to prove that he was Qin Xingwang. Then, he called Tan Xiu. Star City, Long's dining hall. A satisfied smile appeared on Tan Xiu's handsome face after he received Mo's call. He had finally caught Qin Xingwang after racking his brains. He decided to serve him well regardless of whether he was the one who wanted to get the magnificent Tang Corporation's product formula or not. He would make him regret the idea of stealing the company's product information. You've caught him. Kang Xia's eyes immediately lit up when she saw Tan Xiu's expression. Tan Xiu nodded with a smile and said, Yeah, we've caught him. Mo will bring him back soon. Kang Xia, call manager He Dong who's in charge of the scar removal cream product. He has the biggest credit this time. Kang Xia nodded with a smile. At this moment, He Chao was anxiously waiting for the news at home. As the manager in charge of the scar removal cream product in the magnificent Tang Corporation, he had a lot of power and could be regarded as a real high-level executive of the company. He Chao believed that he was very lucky to be able to work in the magnificent Tang Corporation. Whether it was the salary or the future development trend, he was very satisfied. He had even judged that as long as he stayed loyal and devoted in the magnificent Tang Corporation, his achievements in the future would definitely make countless people envious. Loyalty. This was He Chao's attitude toward the magnificent Tang Corporation's big boss. After experiencing the incident in the Long's dining hall, witnessing the big boss kill people with his own eyes, he personally experienced the magnificent Tang Corporation's uniting momentum and common hatred toward the common enemy. He knew that what the big boss valued the most was not the formidable ability of her subordinates, but loyalty and loyalty. Ring, ring, ring. His mobile phone rang and he immediately pressed the answer button, respectfully saying, "Chief Kong. Boss wants to see you. Come to the Long's dining hall immediately," said Kong Xia. After hanging up the phone, He Chao rushed to the Long's dining hall at the fastest speed with a restless heart. He didn't know what the outcome would be, but he was sure that he had chosen to be loyal to the magnificent Tang Corporation and his boss, Tan Xiu. Therefore, the boss wouldn't make things difficult for him. Half an hour later, he saw the Long's dining hall. Under Kong Xia's lead, he came to the business suite where Tan Xiu was staying. He looked at Tan Xiu's back, who was standing by the window, and cautiously called out, "Boss, are you looking for me?" Tan Xiu turned around and looked at He Chao with a serious expression. At the moment when He Chao was a bit restless, the serious expression on Tan Xiu's face turned into a bright smile as he politely greeted, "Manager He, sorry to disturb your rest by making you rush here in the middle of the night. Come on, have a seat. Kong Xia, go make a pot of good tea." "All right." Kong Xia faintly smiled and turned away. He Chao was overwhelmed by the change in Tan Xiu's attitude. He didn't expect that the big boss would invite him to sit down, nor did he expect that the big boss would ask Chief Kong to personally make tea. After taking a seat, with a satisfied expression, Tan Xiu said, "Manager He, to be honest, you're the hero of our magnificent Tang Corporation. I can see your loyalty from you. It's because of your report that we've caught a group of enemies who are plotting against the magnificent Tang Corporation. As the magnificent Tang Corporation's boss, I must sincerely thank you." "Thank you, Manager He." He Chao was happy inwardly, yet he wore a panicked expression on his face and said, "Boss, you're too polite. I'm a member of our magnificent Tang Corporation, so this is what I should do. I'm really satisfied that Manager He can use our as a form of address." Tan Xiu said with satisfaction. "I've told Kong Xia to increase your annual salary by 50%. Additionally, you'll be rewarded with a house of about 150 square meters after the new city of Star City is established." He Chao's pupils shrunk and disbelief filled his eyes. His annual salary had already exceeded 1 million yuan, and a 50% increase was a huge sum. What shocked him even more was that he knew the construction of the new city. After the construction was completed, the housing price would definitely be so high that it would make one's heart tremble. A house of 150 square meters would cost at least 2 to 3 million yuan, right? This reward, a warm feeling suddenly welled up inside He Chao's heart. He shot a deep look at Tan Xiu and solemnly said, "Boss, the magnificent Tang Corporation will be my route from now on. As long as the magnificent Tang Corporation doesn't abandon me, I'm willing to dedicate my life to the company." Tan Xiu clapped and said, "I've been waiting for you to say that, Manager He. I'm sure you've already seen the future development of our magnificent Tang Corporation. Our company is bound to be bigger in the future, and will be managing more and more industrial projects. I'm looking forward to the day when you'll still be the founding member of the magnificent Tang Corporation. I'm also looking forward to the day when you can become the general manager of a subsidiary of the magnificent Tang Corporation, or the general manager of several subsidiaries." He Chao couldn't sit still. He was deeply aware of the meaning of Tan Xiu's words. As long as he was loyal to the magnificent Tang Corporation in the future, as long as he had the ability, he could grasp more power and get better treatment in the future. The big boss was giving him a promise. Thank you, boss. He Chao got up and bowed to Tan Xiu with a serious expression. At 3 a.m. Mo On's group of 5 escorted Qian Xingwang's group of 7 back to Star City. When Tan Xiu saw Qian Xingwang, the latter was still unconscious. Wake him up. Tan Xiu glanced at Kang Xia, who had fallen asleep on the sofa. He directly picked her up and walked to the next room. After such a long time of tossing and turning, it was not easy for Kang Xia to follow him. When he returned to the living room, he looked at Qian Xingwang, who had been woken up, and lightly said, "Nice to meet you." Qian Xingwang looked deeply at Tan Xiu and sneered, "The big boss behind the magnificent Tang Corporation, Tan Xiu. You're really not an ordinary person." "Since you know me, you should also know my means," said Tan Xiu apathetically. "You're just a businessman who deals in electronic products, so I don't think you have the guts to have any thoughts on my magnificent Tang Corporation. Speak. You're a Chinese compatriot, who the hell ordered you to do this? Don't waste your time." Qian Xingwang shook his head and said, "I can't tell you even if you want to kill me. I don't dare to tell you either." Chen Chen also said something like that before. Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and said, "But he couldn't bear the torture that was worse than death. That's why he told me everything he knew, even deceiving you. In fact, death is not terrible. What's terrible is the feeling of being unable to live and unable to die under the inhuman torture. I told Chen Chen that I'm a divine doctor. I can bring you back to life when you're about to be tortured to death. Even if you're a celestial being, you won't be able to bear the feeling of being tortured day after day, year after year. Sorry. I was too sleepy yesterday and accidentally slept in today. _. Chapter 636. There was no absolute thing in the world. Qian Xingwang's awe-inspiring righteousness was destroyed in just half a minute. His persistence was even shorter than Qin Cheng's. The content of his confession was more detailed than Qin Cheng's, and he even mentioned the names of his 8 generations of ancestors. Stygian Club, Vero family, Bayforte. Tan Xiu held a cup of hot tea and sat next to the luxurious bed. Although his eyes fell on the sleeping Kang Xia, there wasn't much focus in his eyes. He was no stranger to the name of the Stygian Club. He had previously ordered the Everlasting Feast Hall's people to investigate the Stygian Club and was well aware of its existence. The Vero family was a member of the Dark Parliament. The entire family had 6 members of the Dark Parliament, and Bayforte was one of them with great power and influence. Qian Xingwang had been loyal to Bayforte for more than 20 years and was definitely a very capable henchman of Bayforte. It was precisely because Bayforte fancied the Everlasting Feast Hall's product formula that he sent his representative in China, Qian Xingwang, to personally steal it. Tan Xiu didn't plan to go abroad for the time being, but he issued an order to the Everlasting Feast Hall to assassinate Bayforte without exposing his identity. How long have I slept? Kang Xia woke up from her sleep and found Tan Xiu sitting on the bedside in a daze. She then asked with a bright smile. Tan Xiu came back to his senses and looked at the time. He then smilingly said, "It's 12 noon now. You slept for quite a long time. Go wash up. I'll take you to the dining room later." Kang Xia was surprised that she slept for such a long time, but she was more concerned about the result of last night. She quickly asked, "Did you confess everything to Qian Xingwang?" "Yes, he did." Tan Xiu nodded. "Who instigated him to do it?" asked Kang Xia. "A certain foreign force. I've sent someone to remove the mastermind behind the scenes, so this matter has come to an end for the time being," said Tan Xiu. "However, the security force of our magnificent Tang Corporation must continue to be strengthened. I'll give some money to Tai Zhongkue later to register a formal security company to be responsible for forming a brand new security force. After the security company is on the right track, all the security personnel of the magnificent Tang Corp must also go to the security company for comprehensive training." Kang Xia nodded and said, "Our business is getting bigger and bigger in the future, so we're bound to need a lot of security personnel to ensure the safety of our property. If there's anything you need me to do, just let me know." "Okay, go wash up." Tan Xiu patted her shoulder and smiled. After lunch, along with Kang Xia's departure, Tan Xiu took Mo Ao to the Walled Hill Village construction site. Looking at the scene of the construction in full swing, he was quite satisfied with the Long family's efficiency. It didn't take long before he found Long Zhengyu, who was having a meeting with the foreman in the shed. "Tan Xiu, why are you here?" Long Zhengyu temporarily ended the meeting and came out with a smile. Tan Xiu directly stated the purpose of his visit. "Southgate Town is the villa complex developed by your family, and the property management company is also established by your family. So, I want to ask you clearly, have all the villas in Southgate Town been sold? If they're all sold, is there anyone willing to sell? I'm willing to buy them at 10% above the market price." Long Zhengyu thought for a moment before he forced a smile and said, "You personally came here for this matter? If that's the case, I'm afraid you'll be disappointed. All the villas in Southgate Town have been sold out. As for the property management company, I'm not clear about it. If you want to know, just ask Long Shuiao directly." Tan Xiu forced a smile and shook his head. He took out his mobile and called Long Shuiao. What he didn't expect was that Long Shuiao actually told him over the phone that there were several owners in Southgate Town who were ready to sell their properties, and one of them was Tan Xiu's neighbor. "I want all of them." Tan Xiu told Long Shuiao on the phone and then hurried back to Southgate Town. He wanted to see Long Shuiao and ask her to help him meet with those owners. Originally, he intended to buy them at 10% above the market price, but the price quoted by those three owners turned out to be slightly lower than the market price. Therefore, aside from the View Building King Villa, Tan Xiu also bought Villa number 10, Villa number 13, and Villa number 14. Finally, Tan Xiu set his eyes on Villa number 11 and Villa number 12. If he could buy these two villas, then the innermost 6 villas in Southgate Town would all become his properties. After completing all the procedures and paying the full amount, Tan Xiu then looked at Long Shuiao, who came out of the Housing Management Bureau with him and said, "Your property management company should have the contact information of the owners of Villa number 11 and Villa number 12, right? Help me contact them, I'm ready to buy the villas for these 2 days." Long Shuiao was already very shocked that Tan Xiu had bought 3 villas in one breath. But now, seeing Tan Xiu's eyes also cast on Villa number 11 and Villa number 12, she suddenly became somewhat speechless. For others to be able to buy a villa was already considered to be very powerful, but he, on the other hand, directly bought several villas. "Tan Xiu, why don't you buy all the villas in the entire Southgate Town? At that time, our property management company will be able to relax and only be responsible for you, a single owner," Long Shuiao said jokingly. Tan Xiu raised his hand to touch his nose as he said with a smile, "Unfortunately, I don't have that much money at hand, else I would really have this idea. Southgate Town's geographical location is good. If I can rebuild it into a villa, how stylish would that be?" Long Shuiao was at a loss whether she had to laugh or cry as she said, "You really have this idea?" Tan Xiu said with a smile, "I'm just kidding. If I have that much money, I'll directly invest in other places. However, I'm really not joking with you, I want to buy Villa number 11 and Villa number 12. Help me. If it's done, I'll treat you to a meal." "All right." Long Shuiao nodded and said. Soon, Long Shuiao contacted the owners of Villa number 11 and number 12 in Southgate Town and conveyed Tan Xiu's idea to buy the villas to them. When they learned that Tan Xiu wanted to buy it at a premium of 10%, the owner of Villa number 12 happily agreed, but the owner of Villa number 11 hesitated and refused. Back at Southgate Town, Tan Xiu personally visited Villa number 11 and found that it was an old couple who lived there. Tan Xiu expressed his intention and promised them a 20% premium, but he hoped that they would keep it a secret. Eventually, after the old couple learned that Tan Xiu had bought all the surrounding villas, they called their son abroad and finally agreed to sell the villas to Tan Xiu. After everything was settled, Tan Xiu felt relieved. He spent a total of more than 490 million yuan on the 5 villas. Mo Ao and the other 10 experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall then chose a villa to live in. At the magnificent Tang Corporation's HQ, Andy, who had a child's face and fair skin, wore a very fitting trench coat and white boots as she entered the general manager's office. When she saw Kang Xia, who was reviewing documents on the desk, she immediately asked with a smile, "Boss, what's the matter?" Kang Xia put down the documents in her hand and said with a smile, "Boss called us and told us to go to South Gate Town in half an hour. Also, we need to leave Star City in the next 4 or 5 days to go to Boss's hometown. So, hurry up and arrange your work. We'll leave in half an hour." Andy was confused. Going to Boss's hometown? What are we going to do there? Will Boss go with us? Andy was puzzled. Kang Xia nodded with a smile and said mysteriously, "It's a secret for now. You'll know when we get there. Hurry up and arrange your work." So mysterious. Andy muttered, but she still said with a cheerful smile, "I've been dreaming to go out and play with Boss. Now, my dream has finally come true. I'll arrange it now. Just wait for me." "I'll wait for you." Kang Xia couldn't help laughing. South Gate Town. Tan Xiu had already packed his clothes. Just as he came out of his room, he saw Gu Yin and Tang Xiaohan standing outside with 2 small suitcases at their feet. Mu Qingping, on the other hand, smiled and exhorted, "You two must not be naughty and obedient when you go out with your master." "Got it. All right." Gu Yin and Tang Xiaohan obediently complied. Tan Xiu said with a smile, "Let's go. Your Aunt Kang Xia and Aunt Andy should be arriving soon." When Tan Xiu came to the courtyard with the 2 children, Kang Xia and Andy had already arrived. Andy was naturally happy to see Tan Xiu. She was also very fond of Gu Yin and Tang Xiaohan. Because of the detour, they didn't pass through the Su family village and directly arrived at the back mountain of the Su family village from another direction. Because of the detour, they didn't pass through the Su family village and directly arrived at the back mountain of the Su family village from another direction. "Oh, the 3 of you stay here and look after the car. If you want to eat, go directly to the mountain to buy. We'll be in the mountain for 4 or 5 days." After getting off the car, Tan Xiu waved to the car that had been following them from behind. When all came in, Tan Xiu ordered, "Quickly." Tan Xiu took the few people into the mountain. Tang Xiaohan was blind, so Tan Xiu was responsible for carrying him. As night fell, the few of them had arrived at the lake in the valley where they had stayed before. "Boss, please tell me. What are we going to do in the deep forest after traveling thousands of miles? I swear to God that I've never climbed a mountain and come to the forest." Andy's physique was very good now, even better than Kang Xia's. But she was still a bit tired. To cultivate. Tan Xiu originally thought that Kang Xia was a bit amusing to hide it from Andy, so he deliberately mystified her several times. But since they were already here, he didn't want to hide it anymore. Andy was puzzled. Cultivate? Can't we cultivate in Star City? Why do we have to come here to cultivate? Tan Xiu raised his finger to the starry sky and smilingly said, "Now carefully sense it. What's the difference between this place and Star City? Remember to sense it in your cultivation state." Andy was confused, but she still followed Tan Xiu's instructions and silently circulated the true essence energy inside her body to absorb the world's spiritual qi. Chapter 637. Water like starlight sprinkled all over the earth, illuminating the sparkling lake surface. The shadows of the trees on the lakeside were reflected in the lake, and a faint plum fragrance came from not far away. Andy didn't understand what Tan Xiu meant, but she listened to Tan Xiu's words. As time passed by, she faintly felt a cool sensation on her skin. Huh? Andy, who had just closed her eyes for a while, opened them and said in shock, "The effect of cultivating here is much better than in Star City, boss. I can feel that the heaven and earth spiritual qi here is not as thin as before." It's several times richer. You're right. Tan Xiu said with a smile, the heaven and earth spiritual qi here is several times richer than in Star City. Therefore, cultivating in this deep mountain forest is several times faster than cultivating in Star City. Besides, the destination I'm going to take you to is even more beneficial for you. Andy's eyes sparkled as she blinked and said, I know you're the best to us, boss. You see, Yinyin and Little Han are so cute, and I'm also so cute. Boss, please tell Yinyin and Little Han to call me Master's wife later. In China, Master's wife seems to be called Master's wife. Pfft, Kang Xia couldn't help but burst into laughter. Tan Xiu, on the other hand, let out a wry smile and rolled his eyes at Andy. He didn't expect that Kang Xia's train of thought was so jumpy. They were just talking about other topics, yet she suddenly jumped to the topic of the relationship between men and women. Let's get something to eat first. Tan Xiu said as he took out the barbecue grill, charcoal, iron tongs, and barbecue seasoning from his interspatial ring. He also bought some meat and vegetables in advance. When he saw Kang Xia and Andy's dumbfounded and bewildered expressions, he immediately forced a smile and said, Don't you two know how to barbecue? We don't. The two women shook their heads and said in unison. Tan Xiu forced a wry smile inwardly as he waved and said, Then forget it. Just wait to eat. He was responsible for the barbecue. After igniting the charcoal, he put the skewered meat and vegetables on the barbecue grill. As time passed by, he put all kinds of seasoning on it. In the end, after his hard work, the two women and two children ate until their mouths were full of oil and they were satisfied. After eating and drinking their fill, they had enough rest. As a result, Tan Xiu put everything back into the space ring and continued to lead them on their way. After another 2 hours, they finally arrived at the outskirts of the stone forest. After Tan Xiu's reminder, they entered the stone forest. Master, the heaven and earth spiritual qi here is very rich. As soon as they entered the center of the stone forest, Gu Yin, who had the highest cultivation among them, exclaimed in surprise. Tan Xiu praised, Yin is pretty good. You actually noticed it as soon as you came in. Look at this spring. It's the spring of the earth vein spirit spring. The reason I brought you here is to let you cultivate in the spring. I can guarantee that you will all improve by leaps and bounds. Tang Xiaohan hesitated for a moment and then asked, Master, although you taught me the positions of the acupoints in my body, the routes of the meridians, and the routes of the cultivation method, I can't even feel the qi in my body. Can I still cultivate together? It doesn't matter if you can't sense the existence of qi now, replied Tan Xiu without hesitation. I believe you'll be able to sense it soon as you follow the method I taught you in the spirit spring. All right. Tang Xiaohan nodded heavily. Tan Xiu looked at the four people and said, Take off all your clothes and soak in the spirit spring. Afterward, start cultivating according to the cultivation technique I taught you. Ah, Kang Xia looked at Tan Xiu with a surprised expression, whereas Andy exclaimed in surprise. Her delicate and cute face turned red. Even Gu Yin became a bit bashful. It's not that I want to take advantage of you, but I must stay here to ensure that you won't have any problems in your cultivation. Tan Xiu forced a smile. You don't know the dangers of soaking in the spirit spring to cultivate now, but you'll understand it when the time comes. Remember, it'll be very painful during the cultivation, so you must endure it. Also, once you notice that your meridians are swollen and the pain is severe, you must immediately stop cultivating and leave the spirit spring. Kang Xia and Andy looked at each other and finally nodded in silence. Kang Xia was well aware of Andy's thoughts. Ever since Andy met Tan Xiu, she had been talking about Tan Xiu all day long. Even a fool could see that Andy liked Tan Xiu very much. Of course. She wouldn't have been so generous if Andy only liked him. After all, her body had been occupied by Tan Xiu, and she was Tan Xiu's woman. But the key point was that she was perfectly aware that Tang Xiu would never come with only one woman. There were many women who covetously eyed Tan Xiu, and their conditions were extremely perfect. If Tan Xiu had another woman in the future, it would be better to let Andy become that woman. At least, she and Andy were like sisters, and they could get along well with each other. Take it off. Kang Xia nodded to Andy and began to take off her clothes. When a snow-white tender body was completely naked in front of Tan Xiu, even though Tan Xiu had explored this tender body more than once, his lower abdomen was still hot and a faint impulse was raised. Andy's performance also surprised Tan Xiu. She was just 10 seconds slower than Kang Xia, yet she had already taken off all her clothes. Although her delicate and lovely face was a bit shy, she desperately plucked up the courage to stand in front of Tan Xiu and said, "Boss, you've seen me naked. I'm your woman later. If you don't want me, I'll cry and hang myself." Cough, cough, fast forward, Tan Xiu felt that he had turned hard. He endured the impulse and just uttered those two words. His eyes inadvertently swept over Andy's golden triangle, and his heart was fiercely shaken. White tiger. Tan Xiu had only heard that there were women in this world who were white tigers, but never once did he expect that Andy was one of them. To control his desire, he hurriedly turned around, waved his hand and said, "Hurry up and enter the spirit spring to cultivate. Inin, little Han, hurry up." Plop, the sound of entering the water was heard 4 times in a row. Only then did Tan Xiu suppress the desire inside his heart. He turned around to look at the 4 people and said, "Inin, little Han, you two must hold on to the blue stone on the edge. This spirit spring is very deep. Once you let go, you may fall inside." Kang Xia's shoulder was exposed outside, and her fingers stirred up a series of splashes in the spirit spring. She then said with a smile, "Did you bring a rope, boss? I think you should tie Inin and little Han's bodies with a rope and then tie the other end of the rope to the nearby rocks. That way, they won't sink." Tan Xiu stared blankly for a moment. He immediately patted his forehead and quickly took out 2 ropes from his interspatial ring. He bought these ropes when he was in Jingmen Island. He threw them into his interspatial ring and didn't use them much, but now he had to use them. Time flew by in a flash. 5 days had passed in the blink of an eye. In these 5 days, Kang Xia and Andy's cultivation had advanced by leaps and bounds, especially Andy. Her cultivation had broken through to the early stage of foundation establishment, whereas Kang Xia had broken through to the late stage of qi refining. Tang Xiaohan had also sensed the existence of qi through Tan Xiu's help and entered the qi refining stage after cultivating. Boom, a layer of qi waves spread in all directions inside the stone forest as a thumb-sized golden core emerged from Gu Yin's abdomen and floated above her head, bathing in starlight. "This is..." Kang Xia and Andy exchanged dismayed glances with shocked expressions on their faces. Standing at the side, Tan Xiu's eyes were fixated on Gu Yin's golden core. He could clearly sense that the heaven and earth spiritual qi from all directions swarmed over like a tide after the golden core broke out of her body. "Take it back!" Tan Xiu shouted in a low voice. Upon hearing it, Gu Yin immediately retracted the golden core back into her body. She opened her eyes and was pleasantly surprised as she said, "I've broken through to the golden core stage, Master. I can even release my golden core outside my body." "Inin, you're not allowed to release your golden core again in the future," said Tan Xiu solemnly. "Unless you encounter a powerful enemy and are about to be killed by them, then release your golden core and explode it to perish together with the enemy. Got it?" Gu Yin nodded with a half-understanding expression. She hesitated for a moment and then asked, "But why, Master?" "It's very dangerous for cultivators to separate their golden core from their bodies," said Tan Xiu in a deep voice. "If someone wants to seize your golden core while it's out of your body, they can easily take it away. Your own control over it will be much weaker than external forces. Once your golden core is taken away, it will be very harmful to you. You may even lose your life because of it." Gu Yin's small face turned pale and she quickly said, "I'll listen to you, Master." Tan Xiu nodded. His eyes shifted to the spirit spring and he immediately sighed inwardly. After 5 days of absorption by the 4 people, the spirit spring had dropped by half a foot. This kind of spiritual energy from the earth vein was extremely precious, and it would have a good effect even if consumed. Soaking in the spirit spring for cultivation was considered a reckless waste of God's gift. However, he didn't care. The amount of spirit spring was very large, and the number of cultivators in society was very small. With the existence of this spirit spring, it would be more than enough for him to train an army of cultivators. Last time, Tan Xiu didn't bring any jades with him, so he didn't arrange an array. One of the purposes of his visit this time was to cover this stone forest with an array. It was better to be safe than sorry. If a cultivator came here and successfully entered the stone forest, the secret of the spirit spring would be leaked. Let's go. Let's leave this stone forest first. Chapter 638. After stepping out of the stone forest, Tan Xiu arranged 3 layers of arrays in the periphery: illusion array, star transposition array, and defense array. The illusion array could confuse the eyes of others and make them unable to discover the existence of the stone forest. If anyone rashly entered, they would be sent out by the star transposition array. The innermost defense array was specifically used to deal with cultivators. Unless one was a golden core stage cultivator, it would be very difficult to break through the defense array and enter. The 3 layers of arrays were interlocked with each other, ingeniously and gradually increasing in power. It's done. Tan Xiu wiped the sweat on his forehead. It took him 2 to 3 hours to engrave the array pattern, and it was quite strenuous for him to arrange it with such a high concentration of mental energy. It could be said that the arrangement of these 3 layers of arrays was the most profound and powerful array he had arranged after returning to Earth. Kang Xia took out a handkerchief from her carry-on bag and carefully wiped the sweat on Tan Xiu's forehead. Then, she asked with concern, "Are you all right?" Tan Xiu shook his head and smilingly said, "It's just that I've consumed a lot of my mental energy, but it's nothing serious. However, you must keep in mind that you must never tell anyone about the existence of the spirit spring except for the few of us. The location of this earth vein spirit spring is a treasure land, and will suffer huge losses in the future once it's known by others." "All right." Kang Xia and Andy nodded, and even Gu Yin and Tang Xiaohan quickly complied. In the dead of night, sparkling sparks flickered at the foot of the mountain as cold air raged around the 2 SUVs. However, several stalwart figures were standing beside the cars, constantly looking at the mountain peak under the moonlight. 2 kilometers away from them, Zhao Donghe was standing on the 2nd floor of a house behind the Su family village, observing the people beside the 2 SUVs with binoculars. There were more than a dozen policemen in police uniforms beside him. The most eye-catching thing was the bulging bags on their waists, which were obviously equipped with guns. "Chief Xiao, it's been 5 days. What do they want?" A young policeman with a tired face asked while yawning. Zhao Donghe glanced at him and said, "Are you tired?" Being a policeman requires the spirit of being able to bear hardships and endure hardships. Back when I was in the criminal police unit, let alone 5 days, I even had to stay there for half a month. Those people were acting suspiciously, and it was highly possible that they had ill intentions. So, no matter how cold or tired he is, we have to continue monitoring him." The young policeman looked a bit embarrassed as he repeatedly nodded and said, "Yes, yes, yes. Chief Xiao, you're right. I'm just curious as to what they're trying to do." "They've actually stayed in the back mountain for 5 whole days. Zhao Donghe said, the longer they stay, the bigger their scheme will be." "All right, I'm going down to take a nap. If you find anything unusual, wake me up immediately." The young policeman took the binoculars and watched Zhao Donghe leave a few steps. Then, he picked up the binoculars and continued to keep watch. Just as Zhao Donghe was about to go down the ladder, the young policeman's expression suddenly changed and he hurriedly shouted, "There's a situation, Chief Xiao." Zhao Donghe was taken aback for a moment. Then, he strode back and grabbed the binoculars to observe. That's at the bottom of the mountain. After spending a few hours, Tan Xiu's group finally came out of the mountain. He looked at Mo Alla's group of 3 and asked with a smile, "You've worked hard. Did anything unexpected happen in the past few days? There are policemen hiding in the dark to protect us, boss, said Moo. Nothing unexpected happened. On the first day after you entered the mountain, some nearby villagers came here. But then the police came and no one came again. The police? Are there policemen nearby? Asked Tan Shio with a frown. They're in the village 2 or 3 kilometers away. Moo nodded and said, we've observed them. They are observing us with binoculars. In order to figure out their identity, Biao Wang took the opportunity to go to town to buy food and quietly lurked there. He found out the identity of those policemen. They are from the Qinghe County Public Security Bureau. Tan Shio nodded and said, they should have received a report from the masses and thought that you're acting suspiciously here. Forget it. Let's just leave since it's a misunderstanding. The 2 cars started. Just as they arrived near the Su family village, they were stopped by 4 or 5 police cars. Tan Shio didn't rush to get off the car. He looked at the policeman in front and saw Zhao Donghe hurriedly coming out with 2 policemen. Tan Shio raised his brows and opened the door to get off. Tan Shio, what's going on with you? A forced smile hung on Zhao Donghe's face as he quickly took out a cigarette. Tan Shio took the cigarette from Zhao Donghe and said with a smile, Chief Zhao, if my guess is correct, we should have made a mistake. I just heard from my bodyguards that the police have been secretly protecting us for the past few days. As a matter of fact, I brought my friends and family to this mountain for camping. But we got lost in the back of the mountain, so we had to play and wander around. It took us a few days to get out. Zhao Donghe was dumbfounded. Never in his dreams did he expect that the Public Security Bureau would receive a report from the masses saying that there were very suspicious bad guys in the vicinity. He even put down his other things and squatted in this freezing cold weather for 4 or 5 days, only to make a mistake. He looked at Kang Xia and Andy, as well as Gu Yin and Tang Xiaohan. The corner of his mouth twitched a few times. He really didn't know what to say. Although Kang Xia and Andy gave him a breathtaking feeling, he believed that Tan Shio wouldn't do anything bad since he brought a woman and a child with him. Cough, cough, since it's a misunderstanding, then we don't need to stay here to suffer. Ah, Tan Shio. If you come to play again later, please inform us in advance. Else, if we receive a report from the masses, we'll have to. Tan Shio could hear a bit of embarrassment and resentment in Zhao Donghe's tone. He immediately looked apologetic and said with a smile, I'm really sorry, Chief Zhao. I just wanted to make my family and friends happy and never thought that this misunderstanding would happen. I heard that the Public Security Bureau's kitchen is dilapidated and should have been repaired long ago. How about this, I'll donate 500,000 yuan as a token of my appreciation. This, Zhao Donghe's heart was as clear as a mirror. Tan Shio was expressing goodwill to him and using this method to apologize. Saying that the Public Security Bureau's kitchen was dilapidated was simply a nonsensical excuse. However, Tan Shio's attitude made him have a whole new level of respect for him. He secretly praised Tan Shio's conduct and finally agreed. Because he had to leave. Under the escort of 4 or 5 police cars, Tan Shio and his entourage arrived at the highway intersection. After saying goodbye to each other, they then rushed back to Star City. It was already early in the morning when they returned to Star City. After Tan Shio sent Moo to send Kang Xia and Andy back, he personally drove back to South Gate Town. Although Gu Yin and Tang Xiaohan had slept for a few hours on the road, Tan Shio still told them to go back to their rooms to rest. Tan Shio, a boss who claimed to be Yuan Jingxian, came to our house the day before yesterday. He said that he wanted to call you, but your phone has been turned off. I told him that you went out of town, and he said to wait for you to come back and contact him as soon as possible. Mu Qingping waited until Tan Shio went downstairs and hurriedly said. Tan Shio's eyes lit up as he immediately nodded and said, I got it. I'll go find him after breakfast. Mu Qingping said with a smile, I've already bought the plane ticket to Saipan. It'll be on the 16th of January at noon. Tan Shio pondered for a moment and asked, why don't you stay at home for a few days? Mu Qingping said with a smile, "This is my home, and Nine Dragons Island is also my home. It's been some time since I've returned to China, and I don't feel at ease letting others take care of things there for a long time." Tan Xiu said, "Since the plane ticket has been booked, then it's up to you. I'll send 2 bodyguards to go with you this time. Don't refuse. Your safety is very important, and I must ensure that you arrive at Nine Dragons Island smoothly." Mu Qingping's heart warmed and she swallowed back the words she wanted to refuse. After Tan Xiu finished his breakfast, his mobile had been charged to 20%. After taking the charger and leaving, he called Yuan Jingxian and arranged to meet him at a small electronics factory in Star City. Here. As Tan Xiu arrived at the entrance of the small electronics factory, he saw Yuan Jingxian waving at him from the direction of the security room. After parking the car at the side, he got off the car and said with a smile, "Uncle Yuan, I went out of town temporarily and just came back early this morning." "You didn't wait long, right?" Yuan Jingxian said with a smile, "It's all right. I've conveyed your idea of needing scientific and technological talents to those researchers in advance. They didn't immediately agree because they don't know the product direction you want to research. Now everyone is inside and they want to talk to you." "No problem," Tan Xiu said. "I'll have to trouble Uncle Yuan to lead the way." After driving into the electronics factory, Tan Xiu learned from Yuan Jingxian that the secret research lab was located here. The products the researchers had researched had been completed, so most of the security forces had been removed. Although it was called an electronics factory in name, it was actually just a cover-up. "Boss." At the entrance of a 3-story building, 2 uniformed security guards saluted and called out. Yuan Jingxian nodded and led Tan Xiu inside. They then stopped in front of an elevator installed in one of the rooms. Fingerprint verification, retina verification, password verification, and work card swiping. After a series of verification, the 2 entered the elevator and Yuan Jingxian directly pressed the -2 button. On the 2nd floor underground. After the 2 entered, a huge space appeared in front of Tan Xiu. The environment inside was almost the same as those in the movies, with all kinds of high-tech instruments and molten iron walls. It looked like an impregnable fortress. Except for the sealed room at the innermost side, dozens of researchers were sitting in front of computer desks and playing with their computers, some were reading magazines, and some were playing with their mobile phones as if they were playing mobile games. Clap, clap, Yuan Jingxian clapped his hands and said aloud, "Everyone, please stop what you're doing. Let me introduce you to someone. This is Tan Xiu, a famous figure in Star City. I think you should know his identity. Star City Chinese Medical Hospital's young divine doctor." An old man with a head full of white hair and a white coat came to greet him. He adjusted the frame of his glasses and extended his hand with a smile. "I'm Mo.E., the director of the Research Institute. You can call me Director Mo or Professor Mo. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.